She keeps popping up.
Do you know who it is?
Yeah,
Oh.
but I mean, I understand declining.
Well, just keep
Please.
calling you. Answer.
My ex-neighbor from the desert. You know, that's gone.
All right, 5 o'clock.
I would like to welcome everyone present today and those watching the broadcast and call the July 9th, 2019 regular meeting to order with all board members present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. I would like a motion to adopt today's agenda.
So moved.
Okay, we have the motion on the floor. Please vote. Thank you. That passes 5-0. Now, let us please turn our attention to the screens. Hopefully they're functioning today. As the Scripps Ranch High School graduate and former ASB president, Jerry Yang provides important information related to today's meeting.
Today's meeting of the Board of Education is a business meeting that is conducted in public, and board members will not engage in a dialogue with the members of the audience. The opportunities for members of the public to provide input to the board on agendized items and to provide testimony on non-agenda items is through the submittal of an electronic public testimony request. The time period for speakers on each agendized item are set by the board as described in the board's bylaws and will be announced to the members of the public as each agendized item comes up for discussion. Speakers on agendized items will be called on to speak during the discussion of the item. If you wish to address the board on any of today's agendized items or on a subject that is not on today's agenda, and your name is not on the speaker list, printed on the blue paper located at both entrances to the auditorium, and you have not already submitted a public testimony request, please complete the electronic form. For your convenience, iPads are available at the reception desk in the lobby and are also on the table at the back of the auditorium. Public testimony requests are automatically time-stamped and must be submitted prior to the beginning of the discussion on an item. If you need assistance completing or submitting the request, please see Board Services staff. You are asked to provide your name or the name you wish to be called by on the public testimony request so that the board action officer can ensure that all speakers on an item have been called. Public testimony on non-agenda matters will be heard at the conclusion of all agendized business. And a Spanish interpreter is available and is seated at the media table if you need any assistance. Thank you for your interest in participating in our board meeting.
Thank you. Let us move to the superintendent's consent agenda. Does any board member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? No. Do we have any speakers?
You have a speaker on I-2.
Okay, note that. And I-14 and 15 have already been withdrawn by staff. May I have a motion on that, please?
I'll move item I with the exception of I-2.
Second.
Okay, we have the motion on the floor. Please vote. And that passes 5-0. We have no student presentations today. A report on closed session. Let's begin with any reportable actions.
No.
None. Okay. D2, administrative assignments.
Thank you, Dr. Whitehurst Payne. 2 management appointments this evening, Program Manager, Special Education, Beth O'Reilly, and Principal for Curie Elementary, Cynthia Smith-O.
Thank you. Item D3, none, as our students are hopefully off and during the summers. D4, Superintendent, you have a report?
Yes, thank you. So next week, in case you didn't know, San Diego's celebrating its 250th anniversary, and we're planning to participate in our city's 250th anniversary. I plan to attend several of the activities that are organized with Mayor Faulkner. So I know everybody is wondering the district doesn't look a day over 165, and that's true. The city was here actually before the district, and of course, our Native American ancestors were here long before that. But the future of the city is closely bound to the future of our schools. That's important to us, and because if you think about it, half of San Diego either graduated from one of our schools or has a student in one of our schools now. That's why we take our responsibility to make San Diego a better place so seriously. #BetterSD. I recently shared at one of my recent superintendent reports was a study that was co-authored by the chair of the State Board of Education, Linda Darling Hammond, and how in that report she talked about African American and Latino students in San Diego Unified and how they're beating the odds and outperforming their peers statewide. I've been made aware of further studies beyond that one showing similar growth that's in the works, and those reports are going to be coming out soon as well. Our state is looking at San Diego Unified to study what's possible and to see what's possible in public education, and that's especially true in the area of governance. Our charter school oversight procedures and practices have been recognized as some of the best in California. I've recently participated with Deidre Walsh, giving examples of how we do the process of our charter authorization. That's why the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurman, asked our district to help lead the conversation on charter reform. California's had a historic opportunity to overhaul our outdated charter laws in a way that serves the interests of every student. So tomorrow I'm going to be back up in Sacramento to testify before the State Senate on this issue. And as San Diego looks forward to the next 250 years, I'm proud of the work San Diego has done to lead the future, not just on key matters of state policy, but by making bold statements like raising the pride and trans flags over the district headquarters and standing up for our immigrant families who are facing unimaginable levels of concern. Those are things that we've done since our last meeting, and we did it together because we believe in making San Diego a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. Let us move now to board reports, and we'll start on the right here. Mr. Weiser. Pass over here. Pass. Yes. Miguel.
Video.
2, 4, 6,
Yeah, you
8
did all
minutes.
No.
So for my board report tonight, I'm featuring 2 videos that highlight our high school students who are in the community performing at local and global events. The first video shows our VAPA students from several high schools performing at Seaport Village. One group of the students from Mission Bay High School regularly traveled to perform in Japan and with events with civic and school events in Yokohama. Next year, they will perform in Havana, Cuba. The second video shows boys and girl high school soccer players participating in the first annual San Diego-Tijuana International Sister City Soccer Tournament that was held last August at Balboa Stadium at San Diego High School and at a high school in Tijuana. Several students from Hoover High School played on the San Diego County All-Star team, which consisted of soccer players from 5 different high school districts in San Diego County. The San Diego County All-Stars won that first international tournament, and you will remember that the Hoover girls soccer team went on to win the state championship last year. So let's play the 2 videos. for the International Soccer Tournament.
Welcome back to the All Sports Report. The San Diego Sister Cities International Association held their inaugural Balboa Cup soccer tournament between San Diego and Tijuana High School All-Star players. The aim is to promote national cooperation between the border cities. Landon Donovan was on hand to meet the players from both teams. And Cross Border Express donated $4,000 to a foundation that helps teams south of the border.
What this is doing is this is teaching kids, forget about the soccer part, it's teaching kids at a young age that we are friends, we are partners, we are on opposite sides of the border, but we can come together and be one. These kids are loving it. You speak to these kids taking pictures together because they're building friendships that last a lifetime.
It's an honor to be on getting chosen or to play in it. It's great because it's we're communicating in a way, but it's not by talking, it's by playing a sport that we all love.
Day 22 at Del Mar, the featured 7th for 3-year-olds and up.
Right. We don't have any students in the horse race.
Thank you.
So this year, the second annual San Diego-Tijuana International Sister Cities Soccer Tournament will take place on July 16th and 17th, with the first game at 9 a.m. at Balboa Stadium at San Diego High School, with the second game at Korea Sports Center in Tijuana. The San Diego All-Star team consists of soccer players from 11 high schools from 6 different school districts in San Diego County. And Landon Donovan will be there again to hand out the awards on the final day. So, see you there.
Thank you.
Great students doing great things globally and locally.
Thank you. And I would just like to say that I did go and visit a VAPA Foundation project at Rosa Parks this week. So, yes, it was the day before the 4th of July. I'm going schools are still in session. But basically, it was a wonderful picture, and I'm not sure if Melissa has that picture up or not, but it's a wonderful mural, yes, that they had done with such diversity, and it had 8 or 9 languages as a part of that mural. They're doing a great job over there with their diversity, and the parents had all gotten together. All the teachers worked together to apply for that grant, and this was a culmination of that project, so it was very exciting. The only other thing I wanted to note is that I did go back to my class reunion, 50 years. And it was, I'm counting, yes, but it was wonderful in the sense that, of course, I hadn't seen a lot of those folks in 50 years, but I learned quite a bit about my class. As you know, I went to a segregated school, and everyone there was African American, except we did have one white teacher, I think. Didn't realize that until recently that there was another one. I had thought about one left, and another one came. And it turned out that that class was the #1 in not just the city, but the state of Virginia in terms of success, going on to college, et cetera, 50 years ago.
Exhibit A.
Well, I don't know about that, but no, I don't think so. I was not the Exhibit A there. But anyway, it reinforces my beliefs that all children can learn, and we'll be working together as a school, at Crestwood High School, to put together events that happened during that time and show where everyone is. And that's why I believe that it's possible that you can put a class together and it will succeed. So, thank you. Let's move on to item E1, and that's Students with Disabilities Update. Superintendent, you have someone to present this
Thank
item
you. Yes,
for us?
our Executive Director of Special Education, Sarah Ott, is going to join me for this update that we had discussed a while back. We committed to bringing back this update, and now we're following through on that commitment. And we have Sarah Ott with us to provide the update.
Hi, good evening. Okay, it's on.
I would say after a very successful 3-day summer institute focused specifically on our students with disabilities, disabilities. We can talk more about that at another time, but great work from you and your team putting that learning together for all of our leaders.
Thank you. So that's where I was going to start. So I'll start with the Summer Institute. It was at the end of June.
Oh, jeez.
We had principals, vice principals, and coaches in attendance. Sorry, distracting. And on this slide, it talks about the visions for the school. So it was around ownership, access, and high-quality instruction. There was a lot more involved and a lot of change, and I wrote some of the reflections, the quotes. But around ownership, that principals, teachers, and support staff take ownership of all students, including students with disabilities. So all teachers, they're not just students with disabilities, special ed, all general ed teachers, principals, all staff. That students have access. Students with disabilities are general ed students first and should have meaningful course of study. And the last was high quality instruction. All teachers will design instruction and create learning environments that meet students' individualized learning needs. So they learn the strengths of the students and then design lessons that are based on those strengths, as opposed to designing lessons that kind of cover on the ones, and we talk about personalized instruction, meeting student needs. So some of the highlights that people shared, the one person said that it was life-changing based on the keynotes that we had and people sharing about adults with disabilities, student panels talking about their experiences, that it was really life-changing. There was a quote that was shared, "A riot is the language of the unheard." And it's time to look deeper into the reasons why students are not in the sphere of success and to have real conversations about what needs to change at the district site, classroom, and instruction level in order for any change to happen. So that we're really working as a group to figure out how we're going to create that change. The day has given me a sense of urgency to rethink how we're serving our most neediest kids. It will be a priority of mine to ensure we are truly providing equal access and opportunity for all students. And another one said, "My cup is full. I realize the importance of looking at opportunity to drive ability and not ability to drive opportunity." So you don't have to have the ability in order to get in the class, or it's actually getting in the class that gives you the ability then to have the skills that are needed. So those were some of the highlights of the Summer Institute, and it was well attended, it was strong, and we're excited to continue that movement moving forward. One of the other areas that we are talking about and aligning is our early childhood special ed program. So we really want to align it with our vision, which is that students are general ed students first, and that we create a culture of belonging by providing equal educational access and meaningful opportunities equal to those of their non-disabled peers. So next year, our Preschool for All program, we are enrolling students through our neighborhood school enrollment options office, and we're allowing students with disabilities to enroll that same way. So previously, they were enrolled separate. You had to go to the special ed office to enroll or to the school to enroll. Now it's all enrolled in one centralized location. Parents have the options. They can have choices, and just like students without disabilities, and sometimes we can accommodate the choice and sometimes we can't. And we'll be aligning services to the IEP. And so that students, currently students with disabilities do not attend on Wednesdays, and so they will be attending on Wednesdays to align with their general ed peers in the Preschool for All program. So those are a few of those resources. And as we continue to improve our early childhood program, we have a committee that will meet weekly that's comprised of our general ed early childhood program manager, general ed early childhood teachers, special ed early childhood teachers, parents, and my executive director, program manager over early childhood, all meeting weekly to discuss what the 3-year plan will look like and how we'll be able to make changes to more align our students with disabilities alongside their general ed peers in our early childhood program. And how we're going to support this change is really looking at coaching through our central office resource teachers, our behavior support resources, and our consult with our program managers to provide training around literacy, provide training around how do we design instruction for all students through universal design, and how do we support behavior of students when they're in those general ed classrooms. And this is specifically was talking about for the early childhood as we are putting more students with disabilities in those general ed classrooms. What we knew and what we've heard is the data showing that students in kindergarten probably have the most referral for behavioral supports. And so they're just coming into kindergarten not having necessarily the experience in order to participate in a meaningful way. And so we want to give them that early experience in a general ed classroom with 24 peers as soon as possible. The other area that we were discussing was meaningful course of study, and as we talked about, and universal design for learning. Currently, the CAC is meeting with Instructional Cabinet monthly. We've had 2 meetings so far. We presented kind of the plan for the Summer Institute and how we were going to be talking about meaningful course of study and designing learning for student strengths at the Summer Institute to launch that, and then we'll be continually meeting to talk about how we're going to move that forward throughout the schools. We have the 6 Lighthouse schools where we'll be setting up models, 3 elementary, 2 middle, 1 high, where people will come to see, discussing kind of glitches, what's happening, what's not happening, what are some concerns, so that we can make sure we're addressing those. We also have mid-level principal and high school principals. They came together for master schedule support, really talking about the use of applied, how we're using it, our students who will be receiving a diploma in the right courses, do they have the option to retake courses, how are we having them retake courses if they're struggling, all of those pieces. So those are conversations that we'll continue to have and have been having. And then the last area of concern was around budget. Our goal is to have a user-friendly, transparent budget that includes ways that we can show all stakeholders what special ed kind of can control and what things are out of control, that staffing or formula is needed, and what are areas that we could look at to make changes, so that that's really user-friendly and transparent, and that the special ed program really is looking at funding things that really are special ed only, and anything that's general ed we're moving over. So a couple examples that we're working with finance around is recently we moved BSR, the Behavior Support Resources, was just under special ed, and we realized that all students have behavior, and there might be students that don't have IEPs that need to access, teachers need to access that resource, so we moved that under student services. So now any student can get that support. So some alignment of those resources. Another one's looking at nursing. There's nursing budgets that are in special ed, but really nursing takes care of that, so what would that look like? So just aligning resources more aligned with where the program is, as opposed to, you know, if it's under special ed, it's only about students with disabilities, not general ed functions as well. And then we sent the CAC just recently the budget. They had about 12 questions, and we sent that recently to them.
Thank you. I believe we have a speaker.
Yes, we have 2 speakers on this item, Linda Mahdi and Moira Alberton.
My name is Linda Mahdi, and I'm a special education teacher at Crawford High School. My concerns that brought me here today is the graduation requirements for my students who do not qualify for those 44 credits for the regular diploma and go for the option 2 diploma. This year has been very difficult because 2 circulars have come out, one stating that only students who have 44 credits can participate in graduation, are those students who are not diploma bound can participate also. That kind of leaves out those students who are the option 2 diploma, who have sat in all the classes as general ed students, who have received the grades, and who have the 2.0 GPA. Unfortunately, they could not participate because they did not meet that final requirement that is required. One of the circulars that came out in February that allows students with ESL students, immigrant students, and other students, foster care, homeless students, it allows them to graduate after completing the state minimum. However, students with disabilities, with IEPs, they are required to enroll in the high school diploma program or the TRACE program. They don't have an option in that. If they want to get that diploma, they have to go that route, or they have to remain in school a 5th year. The other requirement that they have to do is that once they enroll in a high school diploma program, they have to do 12 hours of seat time. There is no A, B grade for it, it's seat time. Once that's done, they have to do 70 hours at a in this case ECC, our educational complex, 70 hours also of seat time, also no A, B grade. By the time they get to that point, they've already completed the required minimum state requirements of the 26 credit or 24 credits that they need in order to graduate. Once they participate in graduation, and I want to note that in order for them to participate, I had to change their IEPs from diploma-bound to non-diploma-bound, or else they would not be able to walk. I have one student who started out at Crawford in all applied classes. He was moved into general ed classes. His goal was to graduate with his class of 2019, and he was determined to graduate in white, which he accomplished. But once he did that, he was declared as a dropout. Until he gets finished those required credits, which is the seat time, he is a dropout. As for the circular that came out in February, students who are, as I mentioned, the homeless students, they're allowed to get that diploma right then and there with the other students.
Thank you. Superintendent, would you look into this for us to correct this? Because it sounds like a glitch that we need to somehow or another fix. Thank you for bringing that to our attention so that we can...
We are
yeah.
already looking.
Sarah's already looking into this.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Maura Albritton. I wanted to just request that there's a little more clarification around slide 3. There's a certain group of students that are enrolling via the Preschool for All, but there is a group of students that isn't, just so that the board's clear. And then on the final slide, I just want to define what recently means. Recently means 4:39 p.m. this afternoon, I received answers to questions. So I want to acknowledge that. I was driving here, so didn't see it until I got here and cannot open it. However, when we say transparent and user-friendly, that would mean that we could actually look at it. So as of right now, we have not seen the budget. I've seen you hold it, but I haven't actually been able to look at the numbers. So that's where we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Do you have anything else to address this?
Yes,
And then we're gonna hear from the
specifically
board.
around the budget. And Sarah and the team had been working on that, and I know she did just receive it this afternoon. But what I'd like to put in place going forward and for next school year is for Sarah, our Executive Director of Special Education and Finance, to meet regularly with CAC to discuss the budget, so it's not just waiting until you have a big chunk of information to share. That can be something that happens on a regular basis, so I've asked for Finance and Sarah to work together with CAC to have regular meetings about the budget, so it's not one big waiting till the end of the year for something. There's no reason why we can't talk about it in an open, transparent way on a regular basis, and I've asked for that to happen going forward.
Thank you. And I know I have several questions, but I'll allow my colleagues to go first. Any of you have questions?
One question on this Summer Institute and the participation. Who exactly participated and on what criteria or requirement or optional, or what was the deal?
So principals was mandatory unless there was a circumstance they couldn't.
Principals at all levels?
Yep.
Okay.
Vice principals who could adjust calendars.
Okay.
A lot of them were able to do that. And then all instructional coaches were invited and were able to, if they were able to adjust their calendars as well.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Then my questions go back to the fact that I did stop by one workshop one morning for 5 minutes or whatever, and there was a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of folks there, so I applaud that, and I'm grateful that we did that. Now we have a level playing field so that all of our principals and administrators should know and understand what the district's goal is in terms of special education. My questions center around the issue of measure. Yes, we can check off that folks sat in a workshop or may have participated, but what will be the measures that we as a board, that citizens, that parents, or even that children will know that it makes a difference? Do we have some tangible goals spelled out, i.e. it may be that I don't know, something related to the IEPs, that we don't have fewer issues with complaints, on and on and on. Do we have something tangible that's supposed to come out of this so that we will know that it made a difference to have the workshop, and so that principals understand it's not just a matter of saying that everybody is owning up to every student, but how will we know that it really got through to them, and that parents of special ed kids and everybody else understand this is real? I mean,
Yeah. So throughout the 3 days, there was multiple times for the attendees to do self-assessments around inclusive practices, around our 3 areas for the vision, to see where their current reality is. We showed some systematic measurements about how often students are in general ed classrooms or separate ed classrooms, around meaningful course of study, around high quality instruction. We showed kind of the systems data, but every site has their own current reality. So they were tasked with doing a self-reflection on their own current reality that they'll be sharing. The area superintendents, how a lot of them had them link it to their running record of what they see, what that current reality and running record is, and then we'll be checking in throughout the year on the growth in those areas alongside our expectations.
And that's something we want to be able to give regular updates on, so it's something that we can track and monitor throughout the year.
yeah, because, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I do find it's a little frustrating that we don't seem to be getting the message across that, I don't mean you, but maybe it's society, but that special education children are people.
General education first.
On Sunday night, I think it was, the TV was just on, and all of a sudden there was this young man, Simon Cowan or whatever his name is, and there was this young man who was playing the piano and singing, and I was like, I mean, he's a child with special needs, and he was outstanding. So we just need to understand that that children are capable, our students are capable of doing more than what we expect them to. And so we've got to raise our standards so that we get the best out of them throughout the system. I'm just beating a dead horse here.
So
but
just to follow up on what Dr. Rogers-Payne is saying, I mean, so the second value you put there was the students have access to a meaningful course of study. So I'm assuming that that's in some way measurable by looking at what courses students are taking, and that you could sort of compare that they were taking this type of courses before and now they're taking this type of courses. And then create learning environments that meet students' individualized learning needs. I guess from what she was saying, I guess it would be, on the negative side would be if there are fewer complaints about my students' needs are not being met, that would be one sign. I don't know how you would word that in a positive way, like absence of complaints versus 5-star reviews.
The couple ways the state has us measure is how often students on their IEPs are in the general environment, what percentage, and what percentage of students are needing to be in a separate school. So, our schools for students only with IEPs. And so when we're designing lessons and environments for students' strengths, we would have less students going into separate schools and environments of students with IEPs only. Of course, there's students that might be needed, but it should be a very, very small number, and we know we can track that number to see the positive effect of students being able to stay at their home school, at their comprehensive site, and being able to have environments that meet those needs there.
So a higher percentage of students being mainstreamed.
Right.
And I'm assuming being successful.
At being
mainstreamed too, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So with the graduation information.
Right.
yeah.
It's sort of along the same lines related to equity and access and opportunity. I know our programs for students with special needs tend to focus on the academic side, and we do have the Special Olympics for our high school students and for our middle school students. I'm wondering if we can have something similar to round out the visual and performing arts, so that we could have a special ed fine arts fair. For example, the students who have talents in music and dance would be able to develop and those talents and have those exhibited in the same way that we do our honor symphony, symphonies and choirs and bands. We could have a performance where our students could display the talents that they have in that area of visual and performing arts. So.
And my dream was that they would be able to perform that alongside their general ed peers, right? And so being able to be in those classes, performing alongside, and they have a part and a opportunity alongside that.
There was just a video that I'm hoping to feature on one of the upcoming Friday e-blasts. It's from CPMA, did their end of the year performance, and they did a dance performance that was fully integrated with students with disabilities called Shaboom. It's phenomenal. The principal had just sent me the clip of it. I wasn't there for that performance. I was there for an evening performance, and it's exactly what you're talking. Did you get to see a copy of this? It's exactly what you're talking about, and featuring that at CPMA, whose core mission is doing this kind of work, and the way they integrated, where students were on the stage with it was phenomenal. So we're planning to tell that story that can lift up that exact example of how we integrate in a way that's meaningful.
Thank you all. I just
couple real quick. I just want to thank you, Sarah, for your work, and I really appreciate some of the things that you're bringing forward, especially allowing all students and all teachers to have access to the behavioral supports and moving that under student services, because you're absolutely right. You know, sometimes students that aren't identified need behavioral help and to be more successful in school. And thank you very much also for your changes with early childhood education, getting preschool for all, to get those parents into the same place so that they can have the same choices as all the other parents for their kids. And then I also had a question about caseloads. I know in the last couple of years we've been working together with our teachers and educators and parents to try to do what we can to get our caseloads even lower than they already are. So what are we looking at for caseloads for next year or two?
Teachers that have the mild moderate credential or servicing the mild moderate program are at 20.
20, okay. And what's the state?
28.
Okay, so we're 8 below the state.
Correct.
Okay.
And our students that are teachers that have the mod severe have 12.
12, okay. All right, thank you very much. And then I want to thank Cindy Martin for also coming forward tonight and mentioning that, you know, going forward we need to make sure that we have more regular meetings with CAC on the budget. I do know that sometimes the budget's in flux and it changes, and so, you know, it's kind of a challenge to kind of put different ideas out, and then maybe when we have to make adjustments, and that might be good or bad. And then finally, I do want to mention that students are more than a test score. And as a teacher, I just know that, you know, students should not be measured by one federally mandated Common Core standardized test. And especially with special education students, they are, you know, every single human being can't be expected to jump through the same hoop. Everybody has different talents, whether it's musically inclined or artistically or athletically, or maybe some people are more mathematical, other people might be more linguistic. There's lots of different intelligences out there, and we've got to, I really believe that we as a society have got to reevaluate how we measure what is a good school or an effective school or educator by more than just one test once a year. Thanks.
And thank you, Mr. Beiser, for bringing up the fact that our ratio is now 20-1, and we're optimistic, I would say, that we will get a good return on that, that our students will notice that kind of service, that level of service from us, and the parents will also notice that. So we're thankful, and thank you for your report. Thank you. Let us now move on to item F1 and 2, the board consent agenda.
I'll move the board consent agenda.
For F1 and 2, thank you. Please vote on that. Oh, we do have a speaker on 2, so we need to bifurcate.
Yes, we have one speaker on F2, and that is Francine Maxwell.
Yes.
Francine Maxwell, F2, and you said do F3 too?
Just F2.
Just F2.
1 and 2.
What was F2? Resolution. Oh, okay. My question and my concern is that the Ed Code, I think 6002, stipulates that each district, when you're having you have instructional material, that you promote the parent community involvement. And so I'm a little concerned with the lack thereof of parent and community involvement, because it's such a heavy thing that is occurring for our students, and we want to make sure that things are age appropriate. Parents need to really be involved in the decision process for curriculum when it applies across the board, but especially for the LGBTQIA, because so many, as they support that, they still need to know what is age appropriate so that they can prepare their homes, because that's where it starts to teach a child. They gave birth to the child, so they should have the first rights to say some things, but they also need to be able to come and express what their concerns are. Age appropriate is extremely important, and parents need to know that they have a right to come and talk about that, and it's not a one-size-fit-all, and that's what this district continually thinks, that things are one-size-fits-all. So I think that there needs to be more parent involvement. As a district, as a community, as a city, we know where we're lacking in parent involvement. And so I'm hoping that there's going to be a strong conversation and a strong push to ensure that parents know about the curriculum, that they know about the Ed Code 6002, and that the fact that they're brought to the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent, you wish to say anything? Yeah, okay. Please vote on that. Okay, that passes also. Let us move now to...
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. You want to present the item? Or you don't need to? Evans and Barrera, you want to present it?
So I think what's important to understand is that the content in Assembly Bill 493, which Assemblymember Gloria is leading, is in a large measure based on the work that's been going on at San Diego Unified for a number of years. And you know, when we raised the LGBTQIA and transgender flags last week, and we had students lead that presentation, we were reminded that the efforts that we've been embarking on for a number of years in our district have been led by students. You know, John and I remember students from Madison High School who began a movement first at their school and then spread to every high school in the district to bring students together and to honor everybody's gifts. And so the work that we've been doing ever since in our district about training, about developing our curriculum, is now, I think, used as a model in this Assembly Bill 493 that would extend throughout the state. So when Todd Gloria introduced this bill, he and State Superintendent Tony Thurman came and held a press conference at San Diego High, and I think it was no coincidence that they came to our district so if you think about the work that those students at Madison High did first at their school and then throughout the district, I think that work is now spreading throughout the state, and I think this bill will help with that effort.
Thank you. I need to recognize Randy Wild, is it? He's here from Assembly Member Todd Gloria's office, who is the author of this bill, AB 493. So I gather you're not speaking today, but at least you're here. Thank you. And we have some speakers.
Yes, we do have one speaker, Francine Maxwell.
Okay.
Francine Maxwell. Well, we support the rights of LGBTQIA, and as you singled out the fact that you raised a flag, Black History Month for African Americans is in February and you didn't raise a flag. We have Asian American Month and you didn't raise a flag. We have Latino American Day, and you didn't raise a flag. So let's not keep pretending like we are all inclusive, because we're not. You're singling out a certain subset of people, which is not a problem, because they need attention and they need help. They need to not be bullied, and we need to know how to start a conversation and different things like that. But don't sit on the dais and continue to play like you are just so equal to everybody, because you don't celebrate each individual. So we're looking, and we're going to hold this district accountable when February comes back around to see if you're going to raise the African American flag in celebration of African American students and staff, LGBTQIA and transgender African American individuals. We're going to look to you when you put it on the website that it's Asian Heritage Month. Asian Americans have a flag. Latino Americans have a flag. Let's go ahead and go to Seaport Village and go to the flag man, and you need to buy up a whole bunch of flags with our tax dollars so that you can start stringing up everybody's flag, so that every child that you're blessed to have in this district, because the parents are continuing to bring them, some are going to come back, and they need to know that this is a welcoming school. Student-led, I'm a little bit lost on that, because the students didn't lead to close race and human relations. It was abolished by your one employee. We have things occurring in summer school that are right up the alley of race and human relations, but once again, it was abolished by your one employee. So that speaks volumes, and when Sacramento wants to look at something, Sacramento needs to look at that. All other departments were collapsed, but in red, next to race and human relations, in bold in red, it said the word abolished. And so with all the different ethnicities in this district, we do not have a race and human relations. We closed that, and we moved most of the money to the LGBTQIA. We have lost some things under the LGBTQIA that goes to every subset. And so we need to relook at that. I support Todd Gloria's bill, and I look forward to the resolution being voted on, but let's not continue to fool ourselves as we close 2019 and move to 2020 school year about the fact that you are not being equal, you're not being genuine to every culture in this district.
Thank you. Any more speakers? Board discussion, please. I must say that I think that that's a valid point that has bothered me, that we need to be fair across the board. We haven't raised anybody else's flag.
Let's raise everybody else's flag.
Then let's look at doing that. Okay, we heard it today. We'll do that, raise everybody's flag. Thank you, and that passes 5-0. Let us now move forward to item G1, which is the Career Technical Education Advisory Committee, annual update to the board.
I get to drive. Okay, thank you.
See, Terry McKerney, the business chair for CTEC, will present the report. You have up to 10 minutes to
The hard part
give
is
the
getting
report.
this. The hard part is driving. Well, good evening. I'm Terry McKerney. I'm the chair of the CTAC. Been honored to present this report for several years, and tonight looking forward to updating you on the things that we've been doing with career technical education here in the district. Well, that didn't work, so let's see if this. What am I missing here?
Technical part.
Technical part. I didn't tell you what I did for a living. So, to introduce myself a little bit more while we're working on this issue. I am not an educator. I have a small company that does defense-related work. We evaluate technology for the lab out at Point Loma. That's not a good advertisement here with me playing with the button here. But the point is, and I'll make it again here as we talk about the CTAC, that we are a...
just press down on this.
The middle button?
Should be fine, yeah.
That we are an advisory panel, as you can see here, and our goal is to provide a liaison between the district and the business community, and to develop some recommendations relative to CCTE programs within the district. There we go. I went too forward, yeah. So here's who we are. Again, the point I want to make is we are not strictly educators, and you'll find within this group business leaders, and also a strong component of those folks who work with workforce development here in San Diego, because that's what we're really very interested in, and we'll talk about that as we go on. Here we go. So what have we done? We review and we approve grant applications. We make recommendations to the CCTE office relative to construction and modernization. I saw my friend Lee as we walked in and talked about some of the projects that he is building. On the first slide there, you saw that we were building 2 Prop 51 facilities, Mira Mesa and Crawford Autotech programs. Those are being worked on now. We'll have them finished in 2020. One interesting point about those are $9 million projects, and half of that funding is coming from grants and the other half from our bond funding. And the thing that's interesting about those projects is they are very involved in certification. So when the kids walk out of those automotive programs, they've got the patches on their sleeve that they can go down and work as technicians down at Mossy or wherever it may be. This slide here, we see a couple of our culinary facilities under development. These are at Hoover, and these are provided by our grant funds as well. Culinary is one of our most visible programs, and everybody loves the culinary kids. And if you've participated in the Thanksgiving luncheon that they did out at the Prado, those are the kids from Garfield. And what you really get a feel for when you attend that event is how important that program is to those kids in that continuing education school. Just to let you know who supports us, and as CTAC members, we are interested in providing support for events such as the hospitality, Teen Iron Chef. And I want you to look at some of the industry partners we have here. I already mentioned Mossy Ford. What we really emphasize is that these industry partners work at the individual school and program level, and that's very important to see that these industrial relationships are solid, and we're also interested in seeing them expanded. Some of the details here, as you're well aware, there are 15 sectors for career technical education within the California Code. We support 12 of them. The ones that are italicized are the ones that we do not support. The ones that are highlighted in red are those that are marked for the most growth within the San Diego region by the Workforce Partnership. So we'll take a look at the enrollment in a few minutes here. But it's important to recognize that we are trying to steer our CCTE efforts toward those particular jobs, those particular careers that are going to be most important to San Diego in the future. Now, I'll make one note here. You see that we don't have an energy environmental program. But those kind of things that are embedded in that particular kind of energy efficiency, green kind of work, are also covered under other programs, our engineering programs, our manufacturing programs. So we are emphasizing that particular aspect in some of the other programs that we do. This is a difficult slide, but the thing I want to emphasize is this: looking at the 5-year growth, these are the high demand, high wage jobs. And across these jobs, you're going to have more than 75% are going to require a degree or certification. 50% will require a 4-year degree or higher. If you were to take a look, and this is what I think is interesting in this slide, take a look at the high school graduate programs and then the certificate programs. So those are the second and third lines down. That's the sweet spot for our CCTE CCTE efforts. So when we talk about having partnerships with the community college, partnerships with industry, partnerships with other people who help get certificates for our students, that's important. And remember, certificates also apply to people in very high-end jobs, CPA, financial planners and such, real estate license. So certification is one of those things that we need to be pointing our CCTE efforts toward. I'm going to get this down later. Just to take a look here at the way our students are supported. Now, right now we have 23,491 CTE students that are in pathways, and pathways are kind of our gold standard. We want those kids to be able to complete a pathway by the time they walk at graduation. So looking at last year, 49% of our students enrolled in high priority sectors. This is up from 2% the previous year. Every high school has at least 2 pathways that are within these high priority sectors. Now, just walking around, this chart can be a little bit hard on the eyes, but to take a look at those that are the high priority areas, look at the bottom there, the EA, ICT, HS, MT, T, and the MPD. Those are the high priority sectors, and again, you can see that about 45% of our pathway students are enrolled in those programs. Our strategies here, and a couple of things to emphasize that kind of reflect back to some of the things I've talked about before. One, we're doing a much better job, I believe, our career counselors or our high school counselors are doing a much better job at steering kids into CCTE programs through the pathways. In the past, sometimes counselors looked upon CCTE programs as just another place to put a kid. So a story I may have told you before, a couple years ago was at Morse, where they have a very solid automotive program. We asked the kids, hey, what do you like, what do you dislike, what bothers you? And the kids in the pathway told us we don't like it when we get kids in the program that are not here for the whole program because the counselors send the kid here just to get credits. They don't participate, they're not interested, they're not as enthusiastic about it. So that's the kind of enthusiasm that, one, the CCTE programs generate among students, but you also see there, again, the value these kids see in the pathways, and that's what we want the career counselors to talk to as well. Secondly, we've also increased the number of programs at the middle school level. We'll talk about middle school again. And the last 2 bullets refer to what we're kind of doing internally, is doing some good entrepreneurial, if you will, on the part of the CCE teachers in terms of talking up the programs and trying to get kids into those programs. One of the big ways we're expanding is down into the middle school through the middle school makerspaces. The one thing I want to point out, and I'll admit that I personally, when I first saw makerspaces, I thought, well, this is kind of fun, busy work. But take a look at the kind of facilities we're building in these makerspaces, talking about 3D printers and so forth. These are very high-end, and we're starting at middle school to develop these kids into the pathways that are so important. So you kind of see a vertical alignment, if you will, between middle school and into high school. And eventually what we expect to see is that go down into the elementary school level beginning next year. We're going to be talking about doing STEM projects down at the elementary school level that, again, feed into the middle school and then the high school pathways. There we go. A little bit more on these middle school programs. We've got 16 of the makerspaces that we just took a look at. Again, the emphasis is on that vertical alignment. Golden Hill, Monroe are scheduled to have these makerspaces installed this summer. And we have Project Lead the Way involved in the middle school as well. And as you know, Project Lead the Way certainly gives a validation and a rigor to these pathway programs. If you went to the recent showcase, I hope you all did, but if you went to the recent showcase, you saw how well the middle school kids were there to show off, and they were actually mixing it up, and they might have embarrassed some of the high school programs that were there. Work-based learning is very important to us. Work-based learning is the involvement of industry in our programs. You can see the numbers there are generally up as we go. Particularly, you see that there's that 20% increase in guest speakers, a threefold increase in business tours, and we've doubled our industry events. The only area we're a little bit flat is on internships, and I personally would like to see the internships grow, but we got some complicated issues relative to internships. One, it's the particular program, and secondly, it's the ability of industries to support the internships financially and so forth. So we got some work to do with the internships. Last year I talked about some goals, so let's take a look at how well we are doing. First of all, our facilities are doing very well, and I mentioned that earlier before. The other problem I mentioned last year was the issue of articulation, and we're continuing to work with that with the community college district. I won't say that we've got the problem completely solved, but I know it's been elevated to this board level. It's been elevated to the joint board level with the San Diego Community College Board and your joint session with them. And I think the thing is we just need to make sure that that emphasis continues. So we want those kids to be able to continue through our pathways right into the community college. The important thing about the strong workforce partnership is they are actually funding through a grant some of the some positions in the CCTE office. And again, a point I've made in the past is how important it is for that CCTE office to have the right staffing because of the intensity it requires to manage the CCTE program. So some of our recommendations this year: strengthen the integration between CCTE arts, media. Can I keep going? Keep going. We're on a roll here. Okay. And VAPA, and we've begun to integrate those. You know, the VAPA teaches a kid how to play the violin. Who teaches the kid how to be a violinist? There's a whole lot of things that go into being a musician, being a theater professional, that probably ought to be looked at as part of CCTE. I already talked about the computer science. And one other goal that I have is to broaden the membership of the CTAC itself. Then finally, we do want to increase our pathway completion rates. Past year we only had a 50% completion rate. We'd like to see that go up. Kids come into the program, they don't complete the pathway. We'd like to see that go up. Ideally, we'd like to see every kid that graduates from San Diego Unified have completed a pathway. That may be a little bit pie in the sky, but we'd certainly like to see that as much as we can. Very pleased to announce our new director, Miss Sarah Velman. Sarah has 17 experience in CCTE, and that includes county, district, and site administration. She's had experience working at all levels of elementary education, middle school, post-secondary, and she's looking forward to our partnership with the CTAC. I will also tell you that I was on the interview panel that hired Sarah. It was a tough panel. We had very good candidates. It was a tough choice, and we're glad to have Sarah here to continue her leadership, within the CTD area.
Thank you.
So with that.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation, and welcome. She's our new
Yes, Sarah's
Al Love.
here. It's nice to have you here.
Sarah's
Yes,
here,
Sarah's
yes.
Al Love, yes.
This is our new Al Love.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to formally meet all of you. Thank you, board members, for all of your support. And as Terry mentioned, I'm definitely committed to working with all of our schools, all of our stakeholders, to ensure that all of our students are prepared for their careers in college and life. So very looking forward to working together.
And before Sarah got started, just as she was getting started, one of her first engagements was going to the showcase. So she
showcase.
got to see what the end of the year,
yes.
what it all looks like, and to begin with the end in mind, which is not, it's very much what you've been working on in other roles, but you got to see how we do it here, San Diego style. And Dr. Whitehurst-Payne just asked me if this was the new Al Love. Al Love is at the county, and we still work closely with Al. He's doing great work at the county level, and we're glad to have you on our team, Sarah. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just hear the speaker.
Yes,
and
we have one speaker, Francine
and then
Maxwell.
We'll engage in some dialogue.
Thank you, Terry, also for all your years of service.
Francine Maxwell, CCTE. So once again, the word transparency slips this diocese, because this report didn't have many schools so that you can showcase the equity north of 8 and south of 8. CCTE, we have a room at Valencia Elementary that's CCTE certified. We have a 3D printer, but we have no programming for my children at Valencia Park Elementary. Why is that? That's a lack of equity, isn't it? I have a 3D printer, I have a whole engineering room. Why isn't CCTE in District E at Valencia Park Elementary? Once again, you know where the programs are, show it. This is our only public meeting. We have, so I'm happy that we have somebody new, Sarah. So let's see when Sarah gives a report, is she going to be transparent and know what the definition of transparency means and show us the schools so that we can hold this district accountable for the lack of equity. Once again, north of 8 versus south of 8. It's appalling that we have to continue to come to our public meetings and you don't show us where the things are. You know where they're at. I think that when I was outside, I heard him talk about culinary. I didn't hear the Hungry Tiger. There should have been a shout out to District E and the Hungry Tiger and all the catering that they're doing at the convention center. Help us with our marketing so that we can continue to roll in some children. So you keep wanting to talk about Hoover, you keep wanting to talk about Garfield. Talk about the Hungry Tiger, their culinary, and the things that those children are doing. That's equity. When you name the culinary and the Hungry Tiger and the conversation with Garfield and the conversation with Hoover, that's transparency and that's equity. So once again, I want to make sure that I'm extremely clear. It's a public meeting. You know where everything is. Why not show it on the screen so that the taxpayers can see the lack of equity in San Diego Unified School District, especially when it comes to CCTE. And yes, Al Love is gone. Once again, your one employee, she continues to purge San Diego Unified of African American men. You people sitting on the diocese should have a problem with that, with your one employee doing the purge. Look at the org chart. Look at all of your staffing here at Normal Street. See if that's equitable. You need all voices at the table to help move this train. And the way that she has gotten rid of African American men in title position, there's a problem with that. And somebody needs to call the DOJ because she's been able to purge this district of top African American males.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers? Board, let's have some discussion. Richard?
Yeah, so first of all, Terry, I really thank you for your report and obviously for your continued years of service. But the report is very clear, and I think the goals that you set every year are clear, and to have a report out about the progress that we're making, and then goals for next year. So I very much appreciate that. And I think it would be useful, and maybe Sarah, this could be something that you could do in collaboration with the CTAC, but perhaps to have like a mid-year, report on the progress. A lot of the issues that Terry and the CTAC are bringing forward are also issues that we discussed in our joint board meeting with the community colleges. So I think a mid-year report and how we're doing and how that integrates the work that we're doing with the community colleges, I think could be helpful. I'm appreciative of what I believe is a trend, although it would be good to get some numbers there, about the increase in the percentage of students that are enrolled in the high priority occupations. We've talked about that in the past, and it feels like we're making progress there. If you talk to people at the Workforce Partnership or in employment development programs, what they'll say is that the number one barrier to people accessing, high quality jobs and careers is the lack of social capital. The lack of networks that, so if you grow up and your parents or people around you are in an industry that's a high growth industry, you're likely to have exposure to that industry and to have a sense of what you need to do to get on a career pathway in that industry. But if you don't, the role that career pathways play in the school district is really very much to create that social capital and connect young people to these promising careers in a way that they otherwise wouldn't have access to. And so this work is so important. And then when you highlight, the growth industries, the priority occupations, and we see that we're exposing our students more and more to those industries, when we see another conversation that we've had, extending down to the middle schools, all of that is so important because it really, opens up opportunities, to our young people. So again, I appreciate the clarity of the report. And to get sort of a mid-year check-in, I think would be helpful.
I just make the observation of how important it is, and again, I see this as the CTAC chair of getting industry involved, because I think that's where a lot of that socialization comes from, and what you see in that, I think, whether it's whatever level that work-based learning, is just the kids understand what it's really needed to go into that profession. They begin to get that light on, and I can go do this.
Well, I want to pick up on that before I check in with my colleagues. At the joint board meeting, we talked about the fact that there are so many jobs right now in coding. I believe they said there are thousands unfilled in the state of California. And at that meeting, I challenged them and us to begin thinking about maybe requiring all students at least take a class so that they can see or at least have some exposure to what it is, because we can't do it with just having one or two folks to go into it, whether it's south of 8 or north of 8 or wherever. We've got to really ratchet up, if you will, what that's all about. And that's just an example. I think if you talk about restaurant tier and all of that, people know, you're talking about restaurants, and they know how to deal with that. Dealing with the automotive industry, et cetera, they have some concept of that. But I don't think that a lot of people really understand when we say coding. And it was Jerebeck, I believe it was, that came and they showed the kindergartners, first, second, all the kids are now being exposed to coding.
Being exposed to us.
Yes, and they taught us something. And so if we begin to put it in at, as you said, at the elementary level, then we'll stimulate more interest. We will then be able to meet the needs of the market. And to have good jobs for our kids, ultimately.
So I have to tell you, as a business owner and potential hirer, I'm looking at the finished product. This is the person I'm going to hire, whether it's in my personal business or not. But that literacy in code, as we talked about, the really K through elementary, feeding into the pathways. The pathways representing the high level learning, but the preparation for those kids and turning them into code literate, STEM literate elementary school kids is really where it starts. Well, let me make an observation. We have they're generally around the district among parents. There's good understanding of CTE, at least at some level, because I don't have the numbers in front of me this year. But almost 70-80% of the kids in the district will take one CTE course before they graduate. The problem is that may be just one CTE course. What we really want to do is put people into pathways so they can leave with those skills, and if it's to college, they go on to college. Otherwise, again, a certification that gets them employed right out of high school.
Dr. Evans.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. McCurney, for your report, and also welcome to Ms. Bielma. And I do know that, when Al Love left, he told me that he really enjoyed working at Sandy Unified, that a group of the other CCTE leaders across the county really felt that he was the person to step in at the county level to lead at a larger level, and he had a lot of regrets about leaving Sandy Unified. So I just want to make it clear what were the reasons for him moving on at that point, which were very positive. So the other issue is, in terms of certifications. I mean, you mentioned about in automotive, and I know there's, I don't know if it's ACE or something, the different tests that they take to qualify for different things, and they get, various certifications. Besides in the automotive, what are the other areas where in high school where students get a very, very specific, marketable certification?
So that is one of my goals personally, is just to look at certification programs for all of our programs. So we can look at community college certificate programs and how can we link our courses. So currently we do have one in the biotechnology area where the students take courses that are articulated and then they can continue on to the community college certification program. But there's other certification programs that we're looking at now, including in the coding area, in cybersecurity, in other healthcare fields. So there's a lot of certifications out there. There are single course certifications as well, like in software or engineering. Some of our engineering programs offer certification in software programs, but that is a goal to look at all the different certification opportunities that are out there. It just gives our kids an advantage to have a certificate in the industry or in the field that they're studying.
Okay, and then another thing that was mentioned was that at I believe you said that every high school has at least 2 of the high needs areas. So
pathways into at least 2 of them.
In every single high school. Okay, because I know at one high school they were talking about the fact that they had culinary arts and automotive, but they didn't have their own bias was towards other things that were related to engineering and so forth, although obviously automotive is related to engineering. But so I just wanted to kind of ask about that.
Yeah, and at that particular school, we're looking at adjusting pathways there based on student interest and looking at the cluster and what are the interests in the middle school, what is the feeder schools feeding into that high school. So we are looking at ways to integrate within transportation. So the automotive pathway is within the transportation sector, which really does cover other areas besides just auto. So we're looking at bringing in some of the aerospace into that area and then looking at some other environmental engineering goals for that. But I'm not sure the other pathways that are at that school, but that was, sometimes different interests change, and when that pathway was created, that may have been a high interest area. But so now, always looking at student interest, looking at labor market demand, we are looking at that school and looking at some other ways to bring some other areas into it.
Okay, and then just in terms of the whole transparency and equity issue, it would be helpful, maybe from you or from the superintendent, if the board could get a memo with all of the high schools and what CCTE pathways are at each high school, so we have a clear understanding of that. And then maybe, if it's possible, to actually put that up on the website at some point, just to have that list, because, I mean, there's so many things we can list about the schools, but that would be, because I know in the past there was a certain this is even several years ago, certain perceptions about certain CCTE courses were offered at some schools and not offered at others, or the particular area of town had an advantage over another area of town. And when they actually came up with the list, it was almost the opposite was almost true. So whatever it is, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, I would just like to see how it is.
I'll take a bit of a hit for that. We used to put up a map that had all of them listed, and it got very busy, and I put together this briefing. I said, let's not put that in.
Oh, on the map.
Very hard to read.
Yeah.
But that map is very good. It's on the website.
Yeah, and even if it's not a map, I mean, just the names of the high schools and the lists, and just to see what opportunities kids have in the different clusters across the district, and also to see if there's some inequity, that there's just at this particular school there are a lot more opportunities at this school, and I know there are a lot of reasons for that, but that would be important to look at.
Definitely, and I know on the website, just as I've been learning as much as possible and as fast as possible, there are on the website now all of the schools and all of the pathway programs that are at each school. We have another document that I've been using which lays out nicely each high school and all of the pathway programs, thanks to the team in CCTE who has put the work in to put this together. One of the things that I do want to add to that is our middle school programs on the same document as the high schools to see what what programs they have as well. So we will be updating those, and we will make those available on the website and to the board as well.
But, okay, but you're saying that right now on the website.
It is, yes.
The CCTs and all the high schools are listed,
Yes.
and where would I find that?
Yes. So on the CCTE website, there is a link to all of the pathways of each school, and there you can download every school separately, but I can send you that link as well.
There's a one-pager for each of the
Yes.
schools. We sent that to each of you, and we also put it on the website, but I can resend them so that you have them, and it's
Okay, but
listed.
someone going to the website and they're looking for it, you said on the CCTE page, I don't think on the home page it says CCTE, so
Right. I
they
think
have to do a search?
there's a link to it on the, on the menu bar on the left side.
We'll send you the link,
Okay.
and we'll make sure that it's clear.
Well,
for you.
Yeah, we'll make it be a nice, and you can't miss it piece.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If you just type in sandy.net/CCTE, it takes you to the main page, and then it has all the broken down sections within there.
Okay, great.
Before we go to one of my other colleagues, I want to return to John's point about exposure. With that reunion I talked about, there were a couple of guys there who said their worst subjects were chemistry. They spent 30-some years as chemical engineers with DuPont, one in Laguna Beach and one in Richmond, Virginia. So if they're not exposed to it, they don't know. So we can't just shut students off from even exposure to concepts and to thoughts.
Right.
And we want to expand them. Maybe initially they wanted to be a mechanic, but then they may decide to go into mechanical engineering or whatever it is. And that's what I don't want to happen. I want our kids to be, especially, I'm really concerned about the Morse area and the Crawford areas, because they're so far away from everything and they don't have a lot of businesses around that they can see. I mean, to you, why couldn't we have an office there? Coding a lot of times is just paper and pencil in an office. Why don't we have some offices in the community that people can see this is a business here? And one day, I pass by this building as I go to school or wherever, but potentially this is a job where I can go and work to do coding or whatever it is. I just think that I'm really challenging you all to go beyond just thinking about we're getting them through these pathways, but to also think about the end product of where they work and how we can expose all of the children more to all kinds of things, because they don't know now where they might want to be. And they may decide to spend 30-some years in chemical engineering and retire from an entity. I'm sorry, Miguel.
No, you're great. So I want to build on to that story about exposure. As a middle school student, I had mechanical drawing and wood shop. And it was out of that experience, those experiences, that gave me a job for my my freshman and sophomore year in college, where I was able to build houses because I loved working with wood, knew how to cut wood, knew how to use the tools, and was hired to build houses. And I paid my way through my first 2 years of college. When I immediately graduated from Berkeley, I was hired as a quality control inspector, and it was that mechanical arts class that allowed me to understand blueprints and how to read them, do inside-outside calipers, to be able to do quality control inspections on major private and governmental contracts. It was that exposure in those middle school grades that gave me those skills and that interest to be confident enough to apply and to get those positions. And so I think I want to add the emphasis on that. And I'm wondering, in terms of building the vertical alignment that we are, and it does make a big difference. We have our Lego at our early learning, which is helping us understand coding. Students are understanding coding as a way of, as well as building items and ideas and using Lego blocks, been able to describe those and draw pictures of those, been able to change those pictures to an arithmetic sentence, be able then to transform that in their middle school years into an algebraic equation, to be able to do graphing charts, to be able to read that. So I think it's starting at those early grades with tools that then build, with toys that then build up to the knowledge of using the toys as tools. And I'm wondering, in terms of the vertical alignment, as we talk about internships and maybe apprenticeships, I'm not sure what the pathway is and how successful we are in getting our high school graduates into the building trades and into construction and sheet metal work. And I'm wondering if there's a way, if a pathway into architecture and engineering might be through middle school and through woodshop and mechanical drawing.
Yeah, definitely. I think you've said, a lot of key things there. I like what you said about toys to tools, and so increasing awareness in elementary where, right, so some of the STEAM units, we're working together with them to see how can we add some career awareness and exploration within those. And then pre-apprenticeships, there are definitely opportunities, and I know that that area is growing, so that is something that we'll look into. And then again, internships, and how can we increase the number of students, as Terry mentioned on the slide, that get internships, maybe looking at summer internships. So one of the things that we're doing and talking about with our team too is how can we use the grant funds that we are getting to build our work-based learning and our coordination of finding those opportunities and coordinating student placement into both. We can look at apprenticeship and internships.
And one thing I didn't talk about this year that I have in the past, because we've been more successful with it, is the alignment of CCTE courses, including the path. Value of that is, of course, the kid's not locking him or herself out of college, marching toward college, but it's a validation of the rigor and the quality of those courses in my mind.
Mike, I appreciate what you said about exposure. I took woodshop too, and my big project was a cutting board, which is like this. So we can also rule out things, and that's why I realized I need to do something with my mouth rather than my hands.
But that is true. It is definitely part of them discovering their strengths and their interests and what do they want to pursue, what do they not want to pursue. So definitely.
A big aspect of that was being able to look at a piece of paper, a two-dimensional drawing, and be able to transfer that drawing to an actual object, whether it's a cutting board or for us it was we built a boat that sailed.
I wasn't very good at mechanical drawing either.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody's good. Thank you. Did you?
Yes, yeah. Thank you for acknowledging me, President Whitehurst-Payne. One of the things I have been concerned about over the years of being on the board is the equity with community college course offerings. And I know when this was first a new program, the course offerings at Lincoln High School were laughable in comparison to other high schools north of the 8. We've gotten much, much better over the years. But obviously, we always want to just make sure that we're doing everything we can to double check and make sure that the kinds of courses to some schools are not different than other schools. And one of the main reasons that we hear is because there aren't enough students at any particular school maybe that are interested in taking that community college course. And so then I believe at the community college joint board meeting a couple of years ago, and part of the ongoing dialogue is the opportunity that if you only have 10 students at one school and maybe 15 at another and 12 at another, then maybe we can somehow bring them together with some kind of integrated learning opportunity, online learning opportunity at the community college level or something like that. I mean, you know, it's about putting heads together and finding solutions to overcome the speed bumps instead of hitting a speed bump and throwing our arms in the air saying, sorry, those students at that school aren't going to have access to that kind of curriculum at the community college level. And so that's something that I think is real important. And I appreciate Dr. Evans' comments about let's take a look at the map, let's take a look at the lists and be more transparent with what's offered at what schools. Not just what schools have what career pathways, but also what community college course offerings are available to students at each high school. And another thing that we've talked about many times is how many career college and technical education classes also fulfill A through G college graduate or high school graduation requirements. And that's something that's really phenomenal, and I really think we ought to continue to educate the public on. Because there's this perception in a lot of the public's mind, parents' minds, and students' minds that if you're in a CCTE class, then you've been pigeonholed. that you can't then pursue a college career. And I think President Whitehurst Payne mentioned that just because maybe you get a certification for automotive work doesn't mean you can't still go to college and become an engineer, a mechanical engineer, or a teacher. So I think that's really, really important.
I do want to comment on that.
Yeah.
Several years ago, I was concerned with that perception too. This is vocational training and slotting kids. And I do want to say that, talking with parents of kids that come from tracks where they expect their kids to go on to Harvard or wherever, they do see the value in CCTU courses. And some of those pathways, particularly the health services pathway, very much linked and very much appreciated by colleges who are looking for those kind of kids. But I think the fact that you bring it up is just another indication that we always got to be concerned about that perception and maybe concerned about the realities we look at curriculum too.
Yeah. And we're supported by the state's vision for college and career. And
Right.
so there is efforts from the University of California to have integrated courses that our CTE courses will also meet core requirements. So there's a lot of support behind that, and we are working towards increasing those.
Welcome, Sarah, and thank you so much for all your work.
Thank you
Terry.
so much for your questions and time.
Thank you. And the only comment I would make about that is that the electricians have told us if you go through the program with, I think it's 2 or maybe 4 additional classes, you can get an AA and then move on. I mean, they pay for everything while you're getting it. Yes, that's what it was, IBEW. So yes, it does work together. But we want our kids not to just finish school with a goal, finishing our facility and then going to a college and not knowing what they want to do, but at least to think about all these various careers and have a plan in place. Thank you both for the report. And now, let us move on to item G2.
I'll move item G2.
Okay. With a motion on the floor, and it's been seconded. Do we have a presentation on this, Superintendent?
So I want to speak about how there really has been no plan for all this tax money that you're taking from taxpayers. And let's make it clear that these are Barrera bucks, all right? Passing these propositions and these measures that keep increasing the cost of housing in this city is a result of Richard Barrera giving political favors to people, having people from the city email him and say, hey, let's look at this property, we'd like to buy it. Why don't we spend the money that you guys are getting from the taxpayers through the property taxes? You guys spend money on flashy projects like football field lights instead of spending money on the really important things like the boring plumbing and the boring bathrooms. Those are the things that really change the quality of the lives of students every day. So when you're looking at this plan, you need to make sure that you're doing the basics, because we don't have a superintendent that understands operations and understands making a plan. She just goes along with whatever Dolgoroff has to say. So, and on that point, I've asked Dolgoroff several times to post the recordings for ICOC. Let's be transparent. It's pretty simple to do. It takes about a minute. But the value to the public to have those posted recordings of what's happening in ICOC would be a wonderful tool, and that would be transparent. But under Cindy Martin, we don't want transparency. We're going to eliminate emails, and we're going to send out, we're going to send out fake letters. Now, the President of the United States, President Donald Trump, complains about fake news. But in this school district, what you get are fake letters. Quality assurance is great. I'm getting off topic. So I'm going back to Proposition S and Y, Y, and Z, and how you guys have mismanaged that budget. And you continue to buy property, and you don't explain to the taxpayers that you had property, and you sold it. Tens and tens of millions of dollars, and you took the property that the taxpayers already owned, and you spent all the money. You could have put it in a savings account and said, you know what, we might need to buy a piece of land in the future for a school, so let's put the money in the bank. But not Cindy Martin and Richard Barrera. They spent it. All gone. all gone. Instead, what you're doing is you're going around buying property, and that property is going to be piled on the back of us, taxes. And it's increasing the housing. You guys are the single entity that have increased housing costs in this city more than any other entity. Check it out. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars are coming based on the more of the bonds that you guys just approved.
Marty, I think that was a little, he should have been first. So now we've done the public speaking, and that's it, okay? Lee.
As Lee's getting ready to do the presentation, I just want to let everyone know that we have significant construction projects already underway at 33 San Diego Unified Schools right now, and we're going to give you a progress update tonight on these bond programs and the projects that are underway. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you, Superintendent Martin. Good afternoon, President Weiss, Hertz Payne, members of the board, Superintendent Martin. This is a report and update of the progress and financial status of current S&Z and YY bond programs, as well as looking ahead at our plan to address urgent needs to improve our school facilities over the next few years. San Diegans clearly endorse the direction our district is heading with the approval of Measure YY last November. At this midpoint of 2019, we have much to celebrate. And these pictures of the topping off ceremony at Hoover High School show the students involved. And here we're busy designing and building innovative new education spaces for students and academic programs into the future. Okay. With the passage of Proposition YY, we're prioritizing accelerating projects to improve school safety, provide safe drinking water, clean renewable energy, and also to make instructional focused facility improvements outlined in the bond measure, including CCTE. And we've integrated the Prop YY projects with Prop S&Z projects to coordinate all the planned improvements, benefit economies of scale, and eliminate rework. And the larger complex projects are designed and constructed in phases to reduce the impact on schools, because we're building during and operating schools at the same time. Let's see here. It's not moving. Okay, here we go. Student safety is our highest priority. As you heard at the recent LCAP workshop, physical facility security improvements are just one component of a complex security strategy. And we've invested $52.8 million in physical security improvements at our schools. With Measure YY, we plan to invest another $250 million, approximately $50 million per year over the next 5 years. We're focusing this work in 3 critical areas: securing single point of entry, campus perimeter fencing, and improving wired and wireless communication systems. The new IP-based intercom, PA, and emergency notification systems that we're implementing are designed to provide effective audible and visual communication in an emergency. And these systems have the ability to utilize mobile devices to initiate alerts and receive notifications. In the area of drinking water, the results of our extensive drinking water testing and plumbing remediation are listed here. Our plan is to accelerate the plumbing fixture replacement across the district and achieve a 5 parts per billion bottled drinking water standard. Staff's actually evaluating the feasibility of piloting projects that will move us to a 1 part per billion action level. And you can see this picture of the filtered hydration station here is how we intend to get to the 1 part per billion action level. And Measure YY provides the resources to replace those fixtures and lead soldered pipe that contaminate drinking water. We're spending roughly $15 million per year over the next 3 years on this on drinking water improvement. This is a summary of progress underway renovating and modernizing schools. We've got 138 major school construction projects have been completed, including 25 CCTE facilities, and 80 new classroom buildings like the one shown at Mann Middle School pictured here. These projects have replaced 626 aging portable classrooms. Oops. Proposition SC and Measure YY provide the opportunity to transform education spaces to support our academic programs. Our modernized schools include collaborative learning spaces, maker spaces, specialized learning environments that support STEAM, VAPA, and CCTE curricula. Our innovative learning spaces are infused with technology. We work in close collaboration with Torrin Allen and the IT department, and together we've advanced education technology at a large scale across our district. Each year we're replacing 5-year-old student devices, so in the 1920 school year we'll replace 37,000 student devices with Chromebooks and over 1,500 teacher laptops, computers. And in the 1920 school year, we'll also see the implementation of new interactive displays and wireless sound reinforcement systems. The advanced wired and wireless network infrastructure that connects students and teachers to information and applications is critical, and we're continuing to leverage federal E-rate grant matching funds for this wired and wireless infrastructure. Also, this infrastructure supports our emergency communication systems, as I mentioned earlier. Air conditioning. We're now in the last phase of air conditioning. All schools, design build contracts were awarded by this board in February for the last 20 schools. Currently, 102 schools have been completed, 23 are currently in construction, and the remaining 17 are being designed or in regulatory approval phase. Sustainability is a big part of the program as well. We've started construction on 10 schools in the second phase of our solar energy program, and engineering and design on 14 more solar installations that are going to take place in 2020. In addition to helping our district achieve its climate action plan net zero energy goal by 2030, these solar energy projects also help us with our utility expenditures. By the end of 2020, our solar projects will save about $4.5 million per year in utility costs and offset 8,100 tons of CO2 emissions annually. In terms of field projects, in 2014, this board asked staff to develop a plan to improve playground surfaces. Our kids were playing on dirt playgrounds at the time. Our preferred approach is to develop grass fields, joint use fields with the City of San Diego that maximize public access to our schools for weekend and summer use of neighborhood school facilities. We now have 83 joint use fields that comprise 295 acres. 2 fields were recently completed, 5 are in construction, and tonight the board approved 2 more contracts for construction of joint use fields at Tubman Village and Longfellow. Charter school projects are also funded by the pro rata share of Prop Z and Measure YY, and this slide shows a summary of the board-approved projects that provide better quality schools facilities for charter schools. We've expended $119.9 million to date on district charter schools. Okay, how come it's not? All right, a lot is going on in terms of communications engagement. We really believe that that public participation, input from parents, students, teachers, staff, and community members really help us design better facilities, improve the quality of the end quality of our projects. And thus far, our team has facilitated 435 site master planning design task force community meetings. So many meetings we have. Lots of pictures of this. Our comprehensive website contains detailed information about the projects planned and underway at each school. These first 2 photos on the slide are really cool. They show 6th graders at Mann Middle School breaking ground for their new classroom building, and then the same students as 8th graders cutting the ribbon during the grand opening ceremony. I got to say the kids are really articulate too. They're great kids. We also have seen a lot of success in emerging business outreach. We're off to a great start in 2019 with our EBE participation at nearly 33%. We've more than tripled the DVBE local market capacity, and in the minority-owned business subcategory, we've achieved more than nine times market capacity thus far this year, and we're on track to meet our business outreach goals. And many thanks go to Karen Linehan and Alma Benuelos for their effective business outreach efforts. One of the ways that we get there is with micro projects. So we offer micro projects, micro contracts to emerging businesses, and this year, in this fiscal year 18-19, 16 projects were awarded, totaling $118,000 to local emerging small businesses. On July 17th, we're, as part of this outreach effort, we're hosting our 9th annual Business Outreach Construction Expo event. It's a premier business-to-business event opportunity in San Diego, and it's free to all the entities and other public agencies that want to participate at Kearney High School. Project Stabilization Agreement. This July 28th, big milestone. We're celebrating the 10-year anniversary of our successful partnership with the San Diego Building Trades and Carpenters Union. Under the Project Stabilization Agreement, we've employed 11,500 workers on 154 projects, and the union referrals are really the key to employing residents from target zip codes. These are poorer zip codes in San Diego. 26% of all workers on our projects live in target zip codes, which represent the areas of the district with high free and reduced lunch participation. But 82.6%, or 4 out of every 5 workers that come from these zip codes, are actually referred union members. So there's a big contrast, and this is what's really activating these areas of in San Diego. So also the building trades have referred over 2,500 workers, residents of San Diego from target zip codes to our construction projects since the inception. 2,552. And since 2009, we've created 23,901 job years of work using the U.S. Department of Transportation methodology. Oh, let's see where. Okay. We issued our first Measure YY bonds in May, and we've expended about, in this last month, we've expended about $2.2 million of those proceeds. So we're focusing here with this slide on S&Z expenditures, where we've issued $2.8 billion combined between S&Z bonds, and our expenditures against that revenue is $2.2 billion. In fiscal year 17-18, we expended $344 million. And you can see we're ramping up, because in 18-19 we went up to $430 million, which is about $1.17 million a day. And when Measure YY passed, we started ramping things up, and now we're you can see we have about $574.7 million of work in progress. So we're at a pace of about $1.4 million a day, and the cumulative change order rate, you think that with all this volume that would suffer, but we're actually, the overall change order rate's about 2.5% at this time. And our fiscal fiscal and performance audits results have been positive for the past 9 consecutive years, knock on wood, that we've received the highest opinion that the auditors can offer for our audits. In terms of future revenues, we issued those first bonds, first YY bonds in May, and we're preparing for another issuance in the fall for Z and YY. And we're obviously issuing bonds at least cost to taxpayers and taking advantage of Prop 51 matching funds. Clicker doesn't work. There we go. So the entire summary of our S, Z, and YY program plan from 2019 through 2033 is detailed in the attachment 1 of this item. The plan integrates the YY projects with S and Z projects to coordinate plan improvements and benefit economies of scale. It prioritizes school safety, drinking water sustainability, and instructional focused facilities improvements outlined in the voter guide. I want to also appreciate our Citizens Oversight Committee advisory volunteers. Staff facilitates the Citizens Oversight Committee and the Charter School Facilities Advisory Committee. Both committees are functioning well. The ICOC and its 3 subcommittees meet regularly. They review audits, produce quarterly and annual reports. And I don't want to steal too much of the thunder because the next item on the agenda tonight is an update from Vice Chair Mahogany Taylor and Andy Berg. So with this, I'd also like to say that this work would not be possible with the collective effort of our facilities planning and construction team. And we're also supported by a lot of other departments, including strategic sourcing and contracts, legal services, real estate, human resources, communications, IT, and finance departments. And also, I'd like to thank Superintendent Martin, Greg Ottinger, Stacy Monreal, and the Board of Education for all of your ongoing support, and that helps make this work. I want to finish my presentation with a staff recommendation to adopt the attached resolution approving Proposition SC and YY project plan as shown on attachment 1. And for transparency, we've included a column that references the voter guide pages for each project in that attachment.
Thank you, and I believe we've already put the motion on the floor already. You have some.
Yeah, just a couple questions and a couple of comments. First question is, as we're going to sell the bonds, what's our credit rating and interest position look like?
We had a AAA from Kroll, or from Fitch, and we're issuing bonds at extremely low interest rates. I can't. Each series carries its own interest rate. I don't have that information handy, but because of our stellar credit ratings, we're doing really well in terms of saving the taxpayers' money on.
How would you say that our AAA credit rating compares to other school districts in the state?
We're probably one of the higher rated, maybe the highest large. I'd have to talk to our financial advisor, but I think we're one of the one of the higher rated. Large. As
a result of having the highest or one of the highest credit ratings in the state of California amongst all school districts, that means that we're getting very good interest rates, which are good investments for taxpayers, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, good. We've got some folks in the audience for an agenda item later, but I do want to thank you for all your work for the Gage Elementary School Joint Use Field. I know that you listened to the community. You and your team did a great job of hearing what their needs were, and those items went into some of that project. So it's a lot like what your work was with Green Elementary School. Thank you for that, and Cubberley and all the other schools in the district for the joint use fields, because children in every school should play on grass. I also want to thank you for all your work and the board support and the staff's work in air conditioning in all of our classrooms so that the kids can focus on learning instead of other issues, especially when we have high heat days. So thank you for that. I was also surprised to hear about the water quality plan that we're planning to spend, $15 million a year for the next 3 years to get the lead out. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And then 2 questions. One, where are we with the removal of old portable classrooms as construction projects are providing modern classrooms for our children?
So we've removed 626 so far. Some of those have
so far this year,
so
or
far. Oh, not this year.
Okay.
Over the program, we at one time the district had about 3,200 portable classrooms.
Okay.
We're down into the 2,000 range. I mean, when I say straight 626, that's how many we replaced with permanent buildings.
Okay.
But we're down into the low 2,000s, and every time we do a modernization, we look at first we look at how much swing space we need for the modernization. amortization, and then once the project's done, we remove any excess portables.
Okay.
And oftentimes, our goal is to eliminate all the portables.
Right, because some of those portables are 65 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we just want to, hopefully we can get a follow-up update on the progress on removing old portables. That's a very high priority for me. And I hear that from parents and teachers and lots of folks out in the community. That's very important. And then my last question is just, and I know maybe you can't provide a thorough update right now, but at some point in time in the future, hopefully you could provide maybe a board memo or something, an update on the construction at Patrick Henry High School that's grossly behind schedule. And I'll leave that question for I don't know if you can answer it now or maybe later in a memo with more detail. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We've been working with the contractor to finish the stadium at Patrick Henry. There's been a lot of challenges with that particular contractor, but they do have a recovery plan to finish by the end of summer. But that remains to be seen. They haven't to date. I agree.
They've had a plan to finish by the end of summer for this will be the third year now.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll check in with the team and I'll send you some information.
And Mr. Buzzer, you asked for an update on that this afternoon, so I have the staff working on that to provide you in our weekly meeting as well.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that the board knew that we are in the third year of construction of a football stadium at Patrick Henry High School.
Thank you. Dr. Evans, anything?
Yeah, I was going to ask, in terms of on the drinking water, you talked about these stations look really great with the filters and so forth. How much of the lead, though, is related, besides the filter, is related to all the pipes in the system that connect the city and everything else? I mean, how extensive is that, and how much of that has to be replaced?
Yeah, so that's the challenge. If we want to get down to 1 part per billion, you almost have to use a filter because it's hard to, it's hard. The source really, we can't predict whether the source has, more or less than 5 parts per billion. Right now, we know that the water is typically delivered at less than 5 parts per billion. If you go to the store and buy bottled water, it's going to be that's the standard there. But in order to achieve 1 part per billion, you have to filter it almost at the tap, and that's the idea. The picture that you saw there is, and the kids love to bring their water bottles because they're reusable. Yeah. And so the picture there is kids can bring their water to school and they can refill it at those stations. And they're also, this hydration station also has drinking fountains built into it. But there's a large filter that's in that unit. And what the reason why we're piloting it, because we know that we're going to have to also, from an operation standpoint, manage the change out of all those filters. So that's something that, but we think that if we provide a few of these, depending on the size of the campus, on each campus, we think that will solve the problem in terms of providing a high quality drinking water at every school.
So the best way to do it is with the filter right at the end,
right
rather
at the source,
than massive replacing of all the pipes. And then the other thing on the PSA, since it has been 10 years, just still looking at what way can we find out about our Sandy Unified grads. I mean, we talked about the high target neighborhoods, those living within the Sandy Unified boundaries, but there have to be some third or fourth or fifth graders when we started passing the PSA that have now been working on these projects. And I don't know how you would collect that data, but that would be very interesting to see.
I certainly can talk to our partners in the building trades and see if there's some opportunity to figure out. I know that there are many of them when I meet with our partners. Many of them came up through San Diego Unified Schools over the years, and it would be interesting to see if we can track that data. But I have to touch bases with them and get that, because they really carry that information. But I'll see what I can do in terms of that.
And the other piece that overlaps with the CCTE is all the different internships for the building trades, and how far are the students getting in high school in terms of being prepared for it. And I know with IBEW there was an overlap, but I don't know about the others in terms of doing it actually in high school.
Yeah, that's definitely a pathway that can lead you to a really great middle-class job. And and if you get into one of these apprenticeship programs, it's tuition free. So the high cost of college, and these are really highly skilled trades and great careers.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Barrera.
No, Leah, basically I just want to say thank you. And again, I think it's, I think people take you and your team for granted sometimes, how lucky we are to have your leadership. You've been directing our bond program now for a number of years. And so when we look at all of these outcomes that we're achieving, of course, it's a big team, and you'll always talk about that, but we need to acknowledge you because it's just tremendous leadership, on your part. I just wanted to ask one question about, so you mentioned the 2.6% change order rate. Do you have a sense of kind of how that compares, industry-wide?
Well, the standard for new construction is about 5%. I mean, that's typically, and remodeling, it's not unheard of to have a 10% average. So we're actually seeing some of these new so we've implemented some new types of contracts, and with those new contracts, we're getting better contractors, not like the one we have at Patrick Henry, but new, and we're actually seeing the change order rate coming down with these. And our active project change order rate is lower than that. That's our cumulative. So we're at about 2.5 roughly overall, and it used to be like 2.8, so it's kind of coming down. But it's due to better quality contractors. I think it's a lot due to our partnership with the building trades, where we have really high quality work being produced through them, but through the skilled labor that we're using. But overall, I mean, it's below industry standards.
That's fantastic, and that's, of course, saving the taxpayers a lot of money, and it's money that it can then be reinvested back into the program, which is what you're leading. I was in City Heights today, and just, driving down El Cajon Boulevard, between Wilson and Hoover, I can't remember a time when there's been that degree of economic activity going on, in City Heights. I mean, construction workers are everywhere, and of course, frequenting the businesses in City Heights. And as we know from your numbers, a lot of the folks who are, building our City Heights schools, live in City Heights as well. So, absolutely, family members. So it's really. We're doing right by our kids. We're transforming, our schools, but we're also, I think we have the largest jobs program and the largest economic development program in this city. And so again, congratulations for your leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mike.
Yeah, likewise, thank you and your team for the effort that you do individually as well as collectively, the coordination you have to do with the various departments within the district. This is a massive effort. It's been ongoing for years. I remember getting on the board and looking at the construction projects that were going to be taking place across the district, and wondering how we were going to be able to do that. Once I got to know you and your team, it definitely is not a surprise that we are doing so well and that we have the ratings that we have, and the projects I have low what's the change order? Yeah, which is pretty incredible. I remember also when I first came on, the first big issue we confronted was air conditioning. And it was going to be a phase 1, phase 2, not phase 3. And the board wisely and made the effort to put air conditioning in every learning space. And we asked you if we could do that, and you said we'll figure out a way to make that happen. The board went ahead and passed that motion. We now have air conditioning going into every school, and that project, which started 5 years ago, is about to be completed. I want to thank you for doing that. Related to that, when we put in air conditioning, that generates utility use and energy. And I'm wondering, on your page 12, you talk about the number of kilowatt hours that we're generating and producing. And I think one idea was that we would be able to generate enough production that we would not have increased cost. Is that still
Yeah,
true?
That's still true. So one of the things we're seeing with these new units is they're more efficient on the heating side. And so They actually, the numbers I've calculated, I showed with the photovoltaic systems, include the air conditioning, and it's interesting. Some of them are saving money on the heating side, and most of our energy, we don't air condition as much because most of the school year is during the winter time. So saving energy on the heating side is actually kind of offsetting or facilitating the ability to air condition on those hot days. And we really do think we can get to a net zero energy by 2030. We're making huge strides, and we need to keep rolling out these phases of photovoltaics at each school to offset the energy use and basically provide clean energy, or provide the energy for these systems with clean energy, renewable energy. So that's happening, and the numbers that I showed, that I indicate on the slide, it also include the air conditioning load.
Related to that question about the solar system and so forth, I know we've had an issue, I'm just bringing this up, groundworks in the whole Earth Lab. But the problem is that we're also using solar ourselves to try to reduce our cost on our property. So it's kind of a conflict for us to give it up for a community project, which is what they're trying to do. So hopefully we're working through that issue with them so that they can understand what we're trying to do.
Yeah, that's true. We have a meeting scheduled with them, but yeah, we're maximizing. There is in some of our schools looking for space for the solar panels. Especially the more dense urban schools. When we build new buildings, we're creating rooftops that will in the new buildings accept solar panels, because there isn't enough. But in a lot of places, there's land to build carports and to put ground-mounted systems. But some areas, it's sort of in conflict. We're trying really hard to find enough space on the property to create enough energy to offset the energy use at that particular location. And that those, as you mentioned, sometimes those are challenging issues.
And related to that, you just challenged me on something. Has anybody thought about finding a way so that the panels don't have to be so big and can still bring in the same amount of power? That's a question for our students who want to be engineers or whatever.
They're getting more efficient. They're getting more efficient all the time. I mean, the technology. Years ago, ground-mounted systems, they had tracking systems. They had to track the sun because they didn't generate electricity unless they were at a 90-degree angle to the sun. And now they collect solar energy from all angles, or better than they used to, and they capture more of the sun's energy and create more energy per square foot of panel.
Very good. Related to that, on page 9, you talk about classroom technology, and you note that we have 37,000 student devices planned for the upcoming school year. I know that there's an issue at some schools where apparently they chose to buy computers at the time, and we don't replace them, because I think that was an issue at a school like Lincoln. Can you explain the difference of why some schools are getting new and some aren't, and how that decision came about?
All the active classroom spaces should be getting new devices and refreshed every 5 years. There might be some computer systems that are tied to a particular program or something, or maybe a computer lab that somehow we'd have to definitely look into that. Or maybe they were connected to a particular program. I don't know, but all the devices should be refreshed. I know. If there is an issue, we can certainly find out what that is, and there may be some specialized computers that are not the classroom computers that are part of maybe they're connected to CCTE or some other program. I had a conversation with Russ Sperling on VAPA, and the need there are certain kinds of VAPA spaces that also need a computer refresh or should be connected, and so we're looking at all those spaces and making sure that we refresh, and that those students get those specialized programs also get new computers when we do our refresh.
Very good. Good to hear that. And I think that pretty much, I'll just stop there. thank you for working with Johnson School, too, for the joint bill, and we're optimistic about us getting a bathroom in.
Just to piggyback on your technology piece, at our board workshop, a fantastic student who'd been through a lot of challenges financially, socioeconomically, said that one of the biggest challenges she had passing her Math 3 course in high school was she didn't have access to a computer at home or the internet. And I know a lot of schools and school districts, some charter schools, they have the opportunity for students to actually take their computer home to do math work or supplement their math practice online with Khan Academy or whatever kinds of programs are open up to those students. But I think that too is really important, that a lot of the students in poverty don't have access to the internet at home. And that's a challenge, because it's one thing to have, computers available for students in the classroom, but when the students have to turn it in and then leave without a computer, that gives them a huge disadvantage. So that, I think, is something that is a part and parcel of our mission.
Yes. Thank
Superintendent, do you know how many schools, I know a couple of schools that currently have a Take the Computer Home program. I think that was a pilot program, but I don't know how extensive it is now.
It was called the Learning on the Go program, LOGO program, and I don't know off the top of my head how many schools have it.
Okay.
Can you update us on that? As soon as an email. Thank you. And we have a vote, don't we? Yes, please, let's vote. And that passes 5-0. And thank you, Lee, for this report. You do have a lot of things up there right at the fingertip, and we like that. Thank you. G3, information item. And I understand Mahogany Taylor, the ICOC Vice Chair, and Andy Berg, the ICOC member, will present the report.
Good evening.
Yeah, you have up to 10 minutes to report it together.
We will be speedy. I have a practice to get my two boys, too. It's tournament season. I'm the vice chair for the ICOC. I represent being a parent who has a student in the school. I have two boys. They're in elementary school. They're sitting in the out there. Andy will be my wonderful clicker.
Andy's failing.
Possibly. I will, since this is not as important. So the first word is kind of go over the responsibilities of the ICOC. We have basically is a group of citizens who review over information presented by the staff, and they give us information regarding the whole construction process from design all the way through the construction process. We review over change orders, the process, like how the how each project is going, and we also, as Mr. DeGarf has said, that we create reports quarterly and annually to provide information to the public about what's going on with the different bonds. And as a number of people have said, we went to go visit Wilson Middle School during this section of our of the year from the last update, which is an amazing project. If you've ever had a chance to go by, on some of the days there's seriously, like they said, over 100 people working. It's pretty amazing to see all those people getting so much done. I think the space is going to be really amazing for the students when they're ready to get in there. We also go over all of the financial reports and audits that the bond programs go, and for the last couple years since I've been a member, we've had clean audits. The last 2 years we've had 0 issues raised from the auditors. The auditors are really diligent about their jobs. They reach out to all of the members, and I know that they also reach out to staff to make sure that they are getting all the information they need so that they know what's going on when they produce the audits. One of the big things that have been going on right now is the kind of working on the deferred maintenance program. We're moving our way to our target goal of 7%. In the last 5 years, we went down from 22% down to just below 17%. And what that basically is just making sure all the repairs that need to get done. Obviously, we do great buildings, but then 10 years later, we have to kind of keep the maintenance of that going on, and we're trying to make sure that all the programs, all the work we do keeps going, keeps updated. This one is a quick kind of review. I'm going to kind of quickly talk about it because Mr. Dolgoroff talked about it. As he said, we review over Prop S and Z, and we will be also doing Prop YY. Then we just got bonds issued in May, so we haven't had any reports yet coming out because they just started spending that money. I'm sure at the next meeting we'll be reviewing those expenditures. As you guys know, it's summertime, so there's tons of projects going on. Everything is very busy. Basically, when we get their updates, we know that they are basically working a ton to be able to get as much done before school actually starts to reduce the amount of disruption that construction happens during school time. And as mentioned, through the I-21 updates, there's a number of refreshes that are going on. This year we also learned that they are going to be replacing the Promethean boards, and they did a whole bunch of testing to try to find a better product that would actually be more cost efficient. So we're excited to see that there's one, I think, in the Ballard Center and one other place that they've been testing out that seems to be a better fit for our teachers. We are open to the public. Our meetings are the third Thursday of every month. We have subcommittee meetings of the Construction and Finance Committee. We also try to quarterly go tour schools, so go to the website so you can, if you'd like to come and to the meetings. And also we have at the website, we have all of our agendas, all of our reports, the quarterly reports, and a lot more information about all the bond programs.
I was talking pretty quick.
And I'm going to run to get my kids to practice.
Thank you, sir.
Let me just add a couple of editorial comments. First off, as many of you know, I've done this now for 4 different school districts over more years than I want to remember. And I've been on this one since Prop S started, except for the 1 year that I was forced to get off by law and take a little break. I could say without reservation, at this moment in time, this is the best program I've ever been associated with, and it's not really even close. And when you're talking about $1.4 million per day in construction, that's obscene amount of work. When you look at a project that is a $1.4 million project, that's a big project. Not going out every day and having Mr. Dolgoroff and his staff manage that almost flawlessly. Yes, there are problems. Patrick Henry's a problem. Others are problems. They kind of corrected that by changing the contracting method going forward that will ensure that we get better projects going forward. But just simply amazing. And I could talk to you about that. As you know, when people have complaints, they show up and they let you know about it, right? When the press senses controversy or there are problems, they show up and they're ready with pen in hand. We haven't had a public member or a member of the press at one of our meetings in probably 2 years. The program's just smooth. It's almost boring, and boring is good when it comes to this. The students are getting better projects, and it's going well. But I do want to add just 2 things, though. One, if that ever changes, you'll hear from us, right? If Mr. Dolgoroff or anybody on his staff is not responsive to what we want and we don't think things are going right, trust me, you'll hear about it from us. I don't expect that to happen, but we're going to be there for it. 2, the bond program is not enough to maintain your facilities. So I've said this a couple times. We come before you twice a year, and I'm going to be the only person that ever lobbies for money for facilities, because everybody else, teachers, counselors, and all the things that are super important, and I get that. But you need to keep money in the budget to maintain the facilities, or they're still going to go bad. When you looked at that slide on the FCI, the Facility Condition Index, it deteriorates every year. These buildings have an effective life cycle of about 50 years in total, which means if you do nothing, your FCI goes up 2% every single year. Construction inflation is 3 to 4% a year. You add that all together, you need to maintain these things. We got a lot of criticism last time. Why are you going out for another bond? Because the facilities don't sit still. You can't take a picture today and have that picture be the same in 20 years. You got to make them better. So I beseech you to keep that in mind when you do the budget every year, and I vow to you that we will keep you informed if there are any problems, and if not, every 6 months we'll be here to tell you what's going right. So thank you.
Thank you.
I guess if there are any questions.
Any speakers? Let's see, we need to get the speaker.
Yes, we have one speaker on this item, citizen.
Oh, she's passing.
She may have already spoken about
Okay,
it.
she's already, yes, that's right. Okay, so board members. Richard.
Andy, real quick, and again, thank you for your incredible many years and many projects of service. How many years in a row now have we had like no findings in the financial?
I think it's only been 3, actually.
Oh, okay.
But before that, the findings were minimal. A lot of the findings that we had were based on the fact that we have a fiscal year and we close the books, yet bills still actually get paid in the next fiscal year. And that was actually a problem for about 2 years, trying to figure out how to get that right, and it went away. There's never been, to my recollection, a finding of any malfeasance or bad performance or anything like that. They were all technical things, and it's kind of amazing that there's been no findings for 2 or maybe it has been 3 years. Auditors are paid to find things. Right. That's their job. Yeah. And if they can't come up with anything to complain about to justify the fact that you just spent, whatever it is you spent, and I know it's a lot of money on those audits, that's a really good thing. And it also shows that the findings they found in the past were listened to and corrected. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
So on the facilities condition index, I mean, this is brought up a lot of times, and I thoroughly understand that as we're improving things, there are things deteriorating at the same time. So actually, to not be getting worse is improvement of how it was before these bonds.
Well, it's not only not getting worse, it is actually getting better because we're putting enough money into it.
But I'm curious, and I don't know if you know this, but I mean, in terms of for school districts, what is kind of a standard of where they're at?
I have no idea because nobody else measures it. So, I mean, that's another thing. You get criticized a lot in the press because you actually measure this and they say, oh, it's not good. Nobody else measures theirs. I guarantee if we went to your house, I know if we went to my house, the facility condition index is in double digits at my house. There's no way it's not after a house that was built mine in 1991, right? So that's always the case. You have about $5, maybe even more now, $5 to $6 billion worth of building value. So at 2% a year, that's $100 million or to $120 million that it's decaying automatically. That's break even. Spend $100 million, break even. And understand the bond's doing more than just repairing facilities, because the idea here is student achievement. The facilities is just a means to an end. Student achievement is the end. So we have technology upgrades. We have air conditioning. These aren't things that helped our facility condition index at the time. Those are new things that didn't. So money has to go to that because you could build a great new beautiful building, and if the students are roasting and they're working on abacuses and pencil and paper, they're not going to get any success in their life either. So you've made those difficult decisions on what to spend things on.
So it's hard to make a comparison, but like for example, in 10%, it's listed as fair. I mean, who gave it that name?
I have no idea where that came from. I think it's pretty unrealistic, to tell you the truth. I mean, if we keep doing what we're doing and you keep putting money in the budget like you've been doing, we'll get there. There's enough money left on these bonds to get there, but I just think below 10% is insane.
So is it fair to say that, when the operational budget does not include enough for routine maintenance, that then there's the need for more bond funds more often to, I mean,
and there probably will be anyway, because I don't think you're ever going to be able to spend $100 million on a regular basis just on routine stuff that would take away from the classroom. So there's always going to be a need, hopefully not for another 8, 12 years or after I'm gone, so I don't have to be involved in it. But there'll be a need for future bonds when we get to that point. There's no doubt. Every school district, that's the way we fund schools these days. Unfortunately, the state doesn't provide the money necessary to do everything that needs to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So on the same topic, the facilities condition index. As I recall, that's the ratio of the cost needed to improve or maintain related to the cost of new construction?
Not exact close. It means whatever the building's worth, let's call it $5 billion. It's whatever it would take to get it to $5 billion worth of value with no need to repair anything, no new paint, no anything for that snapshot in time. So if we had, if we could spend, $2 billion in one day or $1 billion in one day with where we are now, or a little less in one day, and get it all done, then we'd have a facility condition index of 0.
But it refers to the conditions of our building and what we're doing in order to maintain what we have.
No, absolutely, yeah, it's a measure of that. But the actual measure, though, is this is perfect, new, pristine. How much money would it take to get to that divided by the total value of the buildings?
Right, so that's the ratio. So to go from 22% to 16.9, I think is incredible.
I agree.
And it also, I think, speaks to some of the comments that were made in today's board meeting about we're not taking care of our projects. We're going for the fancy visual projects. We're not taking care and maintaining our facilities. This seems to imply that we are maintaining our facilities to a very high degree.
I would agree. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. Students need good facilities for their football team. That is school spirit. They need air conditioning. They need technology. But that doesn't mean we're not fixing the plumbing. You heard what's being done there.
Right.
The problem, I think, in sometimes the perception is this is at least a 10-year project, if not longer, the bond that was just passed. Unfortunately or fortunately, everybody that votes for it knows money's going to go to their school, and they're real excited about that, but it's a 10 or 15-year project. Again, we can't do that $2.8 billion in one day. So the schools that aren't done first are naturally, if I was a parent in those schools, I've done that too. Hey, what about my school? What about my kids? When's that happening? But it is all happening. And it's being done by the ones that need it the most first. I mean, I think you guys have made that really clear. That's what you want. And I think they're doing that. So
we're required by law to have 2% in the budget? Is that?
I don't know.
It's a different pot.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
Different issue. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, board, and thank you all for taking the time to come and volunteer and do this. Thank you. Let us move to G4, the appointment of representatives.
I'll move item G4.
Any speakers? Any discussion?
Before we go to a vote, I did notice that the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce representative to the ICOC is vacant. Superintendent, do we know where we are with having the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce have somebody on the ICOC?
Lee will give you an update on that.
Yeah, there have been times when they have appointed a member to that position. It's just been vacant for a number of times. We continually ask them, and we haven't received anybody in that seat. So we have 10 out of the 11 members. But the committee is large by ICOC standards across the state. Typically, ICOCs have 7 members, sometimes 9. We have 11, although we have a very big bond program too. But they have at times appointed a member into that position. It just lately we have not received a nominee.
They must think we're doing a good job, and they don't need to send somebody over to a boring meeting.
So what I was wondering if maybe we could, ask them again, and then if not, if we don't want it to go vacant, not be represented by somebody affiliated with the Regional Chamber of Commerce, if maybe then we can change the metric or the process in our ICOC on how that person is selected. Instead of maybe having the Regional Chamber of Commerce pick that person, maybe it could be anybody that is a member of the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce that would like to participate in that capacity. I don't know. I'm just kind of trying to figure out how do we solve this problem, because I believe this isn't the first time I've seen that.
Let's explore it. Thank you. So we need to vote on this? No, please do. John, did you vote?
I voted. My button doesn't work. My vote has been taken away. No. Okay.
Okay.
They all work.
5-0, that passes. Thank you. Let's move on to H1.
I'd like to move item H1, naming of the new Gage Elementary School joint use field to be the Cindy Elrod Field.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Please present the item, Superintendent.
Thank you, President Whitehurst, and I'd like to say thank you to the whole Gage family that's back there. I know you've been here for a long meeting. It's nice to have you here. It's our honor to be bringing this item forward tonight on behalf of Gage community and Cindy Elrod and her family. Cindy Elrod taught physical education, and she was an integral part of the faculty at Gage Elementary School for 28 years and 36 years with San Diego Unified until her retirement in 2017. During this time, she was known to be one who inspired, coached, and encouraged thousands of students, and her influence is still seen today. Under Cindy's leadership, she established a running club that continues to this day. It's before school and at morning recess. Cindy was involved in all aspects of that running club, which included tracking students' daily progress, ribbons when students reached milestone distances, 25-mile, 50-mile, 75 miles, etc., just tracking their progress. Popsicles every Wednesday after school when students hit increments of 10 miles, and even yearly field trips for those who ran over 100 miles. Aside from the running club and providing physical education to all students, Cindy organized a yearly field day for all grades, weekly Friday fitness, which had song and dance for grades TK through 2nd and their families, and she developed and maintained a motor lab for grades TK through 2. She acquired a neurogymnasium for grades 3 through 5 and organized family PE nights for the entire Gage community. Cindy was also named District Teacher of the Year in 2006. Cindy is remembered as kind, dedicated teacher and a mentor who was adored by students and parents. The community has brought forth this recommendation tonight with all of the requisite support letters, including from Mission Trails Little League. The principal has written a letter of support, the PTA letter of support, teachers' letter of support, all the signatures, among others. It's our honor to bring this forward tonight.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, we have one speaker, Kathy Burns.
Oh, I should also mention her family's, Cindy's family's letter of support is in the packet as well.
Yes. Thank you. I'm Kathy Burns. I'm the principal at Gage Elementary, and I wanted to take a second just to add on a little bit about Cindy. Her impact is felt at our school still today, as Cindy has mentioned. And it's not just the programs that she led, but it's the feeling that she left at the school. She has mentored so many of our students who have come back to say, you know, they come back, where's Miss Elrod? I want to see her and tell her how great I'm doing. She's made it a priority all her life to show kids that you need to live healthy and happy with a positive attitude, and she did that by example. And I want to share one quick personal connection that I have. My daughter had the privilege to have Cindy as her PE teacher during her time at Gage, and every time she would finish a 5K on the weekend, her first thing that she would say is, I can't wait to tell Miss Elrod how quickly I did, what my time was. And she would. The first thing Monday morning, she'd run and find Miss Elrod, tell her how she did, and her response would be not only good job, but now what did you do to prepare yourself? Talk about what you did. What was the power you had in that? And then now what are you going to do to get a better time? And that's how she interacted with all kids. There was not one child that didn't love going to PE, and that's hard for a teacher to do. So I can think of no better name for our field but the Cindy Elrod Field. So, thank you. And I do want to say there has not been one hiccup during this whole project. It has gone so smooth, so Lee, that group is amazing. So thank you.
Thank you. Any? Are there others here from that school?
I remember the first time I met Cindy Elrod, she was very persistent that I come out and attend the end of the year awards ceremony back in 2011. And I was delighted to try to rearrange my schedule to figure out how to be there, and it was great. The whole school, the energy of the students, how excited they were. Some of the students had run hundreds of miles that year, over 400, 500, 600 miles. Little kids. And, you know, she had such a great positive attitude. She was very energetic. Her whole heart was committed to trying to create a positive environment for those students. And, going back year after year visiting Gage and seeing her was always a delight. And I remember when she retired in 2017, we kind of kidded around about it, how she needs to come back and volunteer after retirement, because that's just not something that she was able to do. And I shared in the surprise and the shock and the sadness when she left us. So I really want to appreciate everybody in the community for bringing this forward. And I remember when this idea was first floated, and I couldn't think of a better tribute to her work for the kids. And thank you, Lee, and your team again for all your work with the Gage Joint Use Field. That's going to totally transform that community, that neighborhood. So now the neighborhood will have a place to come in the evenings and on weekends and play with their families together. And the running track, I think, is a really good addition. So I just want to say thank you, Kathy, for coming down, and everybody else that's here to celebrate and honor her. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Otherwise, let's just vote. And that passes unanimously. Congratulations. Congratulations on that. Thank you for all your work in recognizing.
Thank you, Sammer, too, for helping to lead the process.
Yes. Thank you. I2, I believe, is...
I move item I2.
Second. Okay, we have a speaker on that?
One of the contracts in this independent contractors agreement is regarding spending, it was about $6,000 on how to make the public records system work better. That's really, really something you need to do. Jeffrey Day takes weeks to produce a document that I can get from the City of San Diego or California Department of Education like the next day. I actually just did that. So I really don't understand why you spent that kind of money, because I don't see any result actually having happen. But that report should be made public, and the what this contractor came up with to improve the public document production by the school district is really, really needed. That's a critical part of government work, and it's not happening in San Diego Unified.
Any discussion? Otherwise, please vote on it. And that passes 5-0. Thank you. This concludes the agendized business of the board. At this point, do we have any speakers on the non-agenda items?
Yes, we have 6 speakers on non-agenda items.
Okay. And any of them on the same topics? Because otherwise, we just give them each 3 minutes each.
We have Francine Maxwell, citizen, Rafaela Maximo, Herman Collins, Christopher Pobulet, and Cindy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the President of the United States, President Donald Trump, he has complained about fake news. And so I'm here to complain about the superintendent's fake news. I received this document that I've been trying so hard to get. It's called the Federal Program Monitoring for 2018-2019. I haven't heard it reported, not out of closed session, not a discussion item for the board, but I think it's pretty important. California Department of Education said it causes CDE to question the reliability of the time accounting process. That's pretty serious. Here's another one. Time accounting records were certified by a supervisor as being an after-the-fact situation. So it wasn't documented properly. Yeah, made up some fake documents to back yourselves up. That's what it really means. Let's see. Lincoln High School, Hoover High School, Morse High School, teachers who do not have PE teaching credentials were not employed. So that goes back to HR. That would be Acacia. And it says, as a result, students are not receiving the required 400 minutes of PE instruction as they're supposed to. These are laws. They're pretty basic. I don't know what the area superintendents are doing. I don't know what the superintendent is doing, but I know a lot of laws are being violated, and some people better be in trouble over this.
Next.
Hello, Christopher Poblete, just a parent. Most of the commonalities you hear from the comments from parents and public comment every 2 weeks boils down to accountability and transparency. And that is something that we expect from our public officials. This is what is being done so that there is no more barrier between the community, the parents, the kids, and this board. I want to know what's being done. I mean, I spent 2.5 hours listening to your guys' comments on presentations. Kevin Visor, Dr. Sharon Whitehurst-Payne, you were the only ones who challenged some of those stuff and brought some questions on the table. We spent more time thanking and recognizing people, which is important. But we need to challenge ourselves. How do we make education in San Diego better? How do we meet the needs of our community? Come here. How do we address choice? We want to expose our kids to what they're going to do to be successful in their careers. School is not going to be a choice. Education is important because it's the single topic in our society that will change our next generation. Let's not forget that. That is important. This is our future. These are the kids who need to learn how to learn, who have to have that thirst to learn for the rest of their lives. This is not 12 years of getting through school. This is not school. It's teaching our kids and teaching the world how important this topic is. And it will not be thrown under the rug. You guys closed the school full of kids that were hungry to learn. Thrive Charter School. Let's not forget that. Closing it down based on test scores, not listening to parents, not listening to the teachers, not listening to the community that they serve. And you said it has to change because it was all based on test scores, right? What's being done about that? Why can't we send surveys out to the community, see how we're doing, how we could improve? Let's get the report cards from parents, from the teachers. Those are subjective measures of how our kids are doing, and they're being ignored. Yet on a snap of a vote, we could close the school down. We could reject the petition of a charter school. No one is safe. And it has to change. And what is being done? Can we have a forum on the next agenda? Let's talk about it. Let's make some progressive change so that you hear our voices. And that's all we're asking.
Thank you. Next.
Well, good evening. My name is Herman Collins. Here today to talk to you again about what's going on at Lincoln High School. If doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is a definition of insanity, expecting people whom we overwhelmingly rewarded for acting in one manner to change that behavior is more than a bit naive. In fact, the parents know that who deal with children. What the parents, students, and teachers and community are seeing at Lincoln Gompers clusters, the Lincoln cluster schools, is really a lesson in accountability. With the potential of hiring a 6th administrator in 12 years, the Lincoln campus has become a case study in failure. Nonetheless, according to the published timeline for hiring a new campus administrator, it appears that with a 20-day recruitment process, the district is willing to risk expediency over efficiency. I'm not an educator. Professionally, I'm trained as a social worker. And while I wouldn't say you're insane, there are strong signs that you may be suffering from post-traumatic brain damage. An example of such trauma is a recent request by the district to Southeastern Community Leadership to lead small groups in a survey to help support in understanding the issues at Lincoln. Here's the complete essence of that survey. 3 questions. What is your vision for Lincoln High School? Based on your vision, what are the experience, knowledge, and skills you would like to see in the next leadership? And finally, are there any leadership traits you believe should be considered as candidates or vetted? The Lincoln cluster schools deserve really a strategic plan, an analysis to solicit community input, parental buy-in, and strategic planning with metrics, timetables to understand what is expected of all parties to ensure student success. The challenges at Lincoln are really the challenges of the San Diego Unified School District in educating black and brown students everywhere. Once a plan is complete, the district will have a better idea of the skill set needed for a campus administrator to head the new birth Lincoln High School, which should be extended to include Porter, Knox, and Millennial Middle School Tech. This plan would actually be a prescribed treatment plan to address the trauma of the administrative musical chairs at Lincoln, Porter, and MTM, and the reasons why some 8,000 students every morning leave the Lincoln catchment to get an education somewhere else. If I could have just one more minute to summarize. The Lincoln campus was built for some 2,800 students. Its efficiency works best at about 2,400. The current enrollment is about 1,700, which would make one believe the district to be a victim of chronic traumatic encephalia, CET, a progressive degenerate disease of the brain found in people who have a history of repetitive brain damage. Please, no further harm at Lincoln. Press the pause button. For even the most skilled educational administrator needs the opportunity to study the challenges, assess the campus capabilities, form community and parental and teacher alliances, and this is what I believe educators do in preparing a lesson plan. In this case, a lesson for accountability.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, we have any more speakers?
Rafaela Maximo was actually supposed to speak for a group of current and future Green parents in regards to bus transportation. And so she had to leave because she had other prior things to do. So what we come to you for the board is that at the very last moment, we were told and notified that bus transportation was not going to be provided for our children for the upcoming school year. Never was that ever informed to us prior to any kind of enrollment or throughout the plan of us applying for the school district, applying for the school. So we have lost that bus transportation. This is an injustice to our children because with your plan of the Vision of 2020 to have qualified schools in every neighborhood, what happens to our kids who are not in the neighborhood of Green, who are being bused in? Now, we have been told that it was the school's lack of getting the 25 qualified applicants into the school, but that was not ever told to us or never brought to our decision or even given to us as a decision to be made as we gave up as newcoming parents other opportunities for our kids to attend a magnet school that is not in our community, that is not accessible to us. So we come to you as many parents we have here right now to see if something can be done or something can be thought of, because if we are looking at that vision for 2020 to have that kind of schooling within our neighborhood and we don't have that, what happens to our kids? We've been here for 2.5 hours wanting to speak, and our children are not getting that kind of education that can be given to us in our neighborhood schools, and I'm sorry, and that's why we look out to other schools. So we ask for you guys to please, if you guys can reinstate our busing for our children for the next school year and see that our kids can get the same education as any other kids out there. Thank you.
What school are we talking about?
Green Elementary.
Green, okay.
From where?
No, they're coming from different areas. Some are coming from Southeast. Where your daughter's coming from, where?
Anna, Lee, and Vincent. Not two kids.
Area, what's your area?
Okay.
You do? Yeah, so 54th Street, City Heights area. So it's affecting a big community. Now, they said they had to have 25 applicants. The school decides that. I mean, if they knew they had to have 25 kids on that bus, they should have been able to accommodate 25 kids. And for us to be told literally on like June 16th, no, June 19th, no busing, what are we going to do? I already give up High Tech High. Other people are giving up other schools. So that's where we
Thank
came to
you.
you.
We'll have the superintendent. You have a report on it? Okay.
Don't you say something?
Yeah, nice.
This does have to do with the decision around the number of students that we need for a bus. The bus stops are determined by the high school boundaries between Morris, Lincoln, San Diego High, and Hoover. There's only 10 students from those 4 high schools that are riding the bus. And for magnet transportation students, our policy is they must live more than 5 miles from the school, and there must be 25 students from a high school boundary to have a stop. And in this case, there weren't enough riders from any school boundary to continue this route. Between both schools, they have 12 students currently. And at time of enrollment versus time of notifying them, some people don't know when they enroll that might happen. So I can give a further update in a memo if you'd like to all of you, but that's the current status.
Yeah, because I think the point is valid about them knowing to make plans.
It's not agendized for discussion right now, so I can give you more information later, but we are aware of it.
President Whitehurst-Payne, would you please share with the public the fact that we can't really discuss it and that the superintendent will follow up?
Yes, this is not agendized, so we can't discuss it now, but the superintendent will give us a report later. We'll agendize it if necessary.
Yes.
In the future. Thank you.
This is Cindy Burrows, Lincoln High School, PTO. A proud public servant is defined as someone who works honorably, consistently, and with dedication. That is what you all on the diocese are. You are public servants. I have personally witnessed the very degrading, disrespectful remarks from several public servants, one of them being 3rd grade reading level of Lincoln High School students in a public forum with parents. A second statement was, I will not hire Soto as a principal no matter what you say or what you do. A third statement was, due to the low parent attendance, having a parent meeting was not the best option. As we know, Lincoln is in a state of an emergency, and I highly doubt that the district will be able to fulfill the administrative positions that were fired recently here in the last couple of months. There is no possible way with the very strenuous ways that HR has to take this process on that we are going to give our community what it is deserved. We have a complex director position that I feel should be halted and not funded or hired for. What is most important at Lincoln is a principal and 3 vice principals. We should not be wasting time, resources, or money trying to hire a complex director who has no instructional input, who cannot make a change to instructional input, which is the whole reason why we got rid of the entire staff, the admin staff. We have a lot of turnover at this school. We are not serving this community correctly. Also, it was also annotated, because I read through a lot of emails. I've been around this show a little bit. Some of y'all have seen me. 5 times the announcement went out for 1 principal position for Soto. I sat on 3 panels. And you want to think that in 20 days you can hire 5 positions? Absolutely not. It's ludicrous. So at this point, this diocese is failing the community of Lincoln, and I need everyone to acknowledge their failure, and I need everybody to do what they're supposed to do as public servants and make sure we get the staff that we need to get. I'm requesting for that position to be stopped. I want to see an evaluation of Cindy Martin. I want to see her last evaluation. She was evaluated. We don't have a record of that evaluation. That's public record. I want to see it. I'm going to leave you guys with this. We need to have a parent meeting. Our parents have not been heard. The request has been made. Your email should be flooded. If we need a parent meeting, they need to be heard. It's going to be painful. It will be. I'll be there to help you get through some of that pain. But you are refusing to listen to the parents' voices. You had student and staff, but you forgot the parents. You can't have students without parents, and you guys are ignoring the parent voice. I need that meeting to happen ASAP, because you have level 1 interviews next week and panel interviews next week also. Thank you for your time. I look forward to the meeting that should be scheduled to meet with the Lincoln community parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
Yes, we had a late addition, Sean Coolican, and Francine Maxwell, if she's still here.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I know it's late in the evening. You guys might remember me. I was here 2 years ago. I was one of the ones who got pink slipped. I was a teacher at SCPA. I taught creative writing and English, and I was the English department head. I was here right after I lost my job, and then I was here again in the fall, a couple months later, and just telling you how difficult it is. I'm leaving the district, and this is probably going to be my last time here, but I just wanted to come back and talk about the whole pink slip thing, because I think it's kind of been forgotten. You know, I'm no spring chicken. I was a teacher for 18 years, and both of my parents were teachers. I was also, I think, highly educated. I have an MA in English, and I just got my MFA in creative writing, and I mean, I live my subject. But after getting pink slipped and losing my job a couple days before graduation, it was traumatizing. And I did go off and I taught somewhere else the year after, but last year I just decided I was just really upset and frustrated, and so I kind of quit. And I took this last year off, and yeah, and I just wanted to come back tonight. I'm moving in a couple days. I'm moving out of state to go get my PhD in English. So maybe this was a whole blessing, but I really liked SCPA. SCPA was my family, and I belonged there, and I really wanted to get that English department going, and I really wanted to build the creative writing program with the connections I had at San Diego State, but it all just crumbled apart. And you know, the people who lose out the most are the students, always. And yeah, I didn't want to come here and just give you guys a whole guilt trip, but you know, I did take a couple hours out of my time from packing tonight because I wanted to come here, and I just wanted to speak to you. If there are pink slips again, and I know there will be, just remember that there are teachers like me, great teachers, who the students lost. And I'd like to come back here again. I wanted to say thank you so much for the 2 years you guys gave me at SCPA. I wanted to say thank you to, there was a woman named Marilyn, I think she hired me back in September 2015 when I came here for San Diego State. I want to thank, I see Acacia over there. Thank you, Acacia, for always emailing me back. Erin Houston, I don't know if she's here, but thank you, Erin. She was the one who called me and hired me. I know you guys are a great district. I know you guys are a special district. I subbed around here the last couple months recently, and I saw the schools that are all being built. I'd like to come back here someday, maybe teach, maybe work for the district, I don't know. But I just want to say thank you and take care. I wish you the best.
Thank you. And that's it. That concludes it. This concludes our meeting. Our next regular meeting will be held on July 30th, 2019. Thank you all for coming and sharing with us.